And hello. Welcome to another Humpday Q&A.
Hey, hi. Hey, good to see you all again. Been a week.
Bueno.
Seems to be a normal length week as opposed to the previous week. Yes.
I don't know about normal, man. I'm about hitting my limit because if I see the words, we cannot confirm your seats just once more.
Where's your microphone?
Thank you, Delta.
Yeah, where's your microphone, Scott?
It sounds like you've got a room, like you're here in the room.
Yeah. Right.
Is this good or bad?
No, Demi, tap the mic. Is it that mic? No, we're not using that mic. No. We'll let you figure
That's
out.
why.
We'll jump straight into the intros, and then we'll go from there. Right.
Sure.
Cool. Welcome to the show. I guess, Randall, do you want to do the do's and don'ts? What's his mic out?
Sure. So be nice. Everybody be cool. Hang out. It's a good place to be. Don't post anything that's adult or offensive. Do not spam. Do not promote your own stuff. We get to promote stuff because we're running the show, but you guys don't. So just be careful about that. And again, don't spam. Don't keep asking the same question in particular, because as question manager, I will move your question to the end of the queue instead of the beginning of the queue every time you repeat that same question. So just don't do that. You're losing your place in line. We do not tolerate harassment in any way, shape, or form. You get cut off of here and probably cut off of other places that we have influence on. So be careful about that. But do have a good time. We're here to have fun. We're here to get some of us educated and some of you educated as well. So and we have smart people on besides me instead of me. We got smart people on to take care of your questions today.
I was going to say, this is the new form of edutainment. That's what it is. Do you remember edutainment of the 90s?
Edutainment, yeah, I remember that.
I've got Scott.
One.
Nope.
No.
What?
Thank
you.
You're playing with those.
I'm going to blame Windows.
Let's see. Yeah, so let's do some introductions briefly. So, my name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter community leader and CTO here at Dev Angels London, and I'm on Twitter at Dev Angels London. We also have Mastodon accounts, by the way, so you can always find us on there on fluttercommunity.social. Scott, do you want to briefly introduce yourself while you're... Yeah. Cool.
No, it's testing 1, 2.
Yeah. We
still
hear you, but it's just
that's very strange because it says it's on the correct mic. Anyway, I am Scott Stahl, community leader, organizer GDG Cleveland, do rescues for big black and old dogs, especially pit bulls. Here comes one now.
Cool.
And I do a whole lot of other stuff that you probably don't care about. Next.
Cool. Okay, I'm Randall Schwartz. I'm a Google developer expert for Dart and Flutter ever since the beginning of that program. And I also am the question magician on this show, which means that I am constantly watching the live chat. And please be one of the live chat. Don't be one of the, go ahead and be one of the thousands of people that downloads it after the show. But also come join us. We have a great time. I know it's inconvenient for the far half of the planet. But, come join us. We actually have a lot of fun here. So you put your questions in the live chat. You precede them with a Q. I noticed that, and I put them in the queue. There's your pun, Scott. Scott was upset that I wasn't doing the pun before. All right. There we go. Now that's out of the way now. That's out of the way. Anyway, I'm actually probably going to be behind the scenes for most of the show because we have some wonderful guests coming on, and I don't want to take up unnecessary screen space.
Talking about wonderful guests, let's bring some on.
I was going to, and Randall, that wasn't me.
Whoa, did I miss?
What wasn't you?
It was not me.
Oh, sorry. It's somebody else.
Yeah. We have a John.
It was Danielle.
Yeah. Your microphone's muted, John. But yes, welcome to the stream.
I'm going to be right back. I'm going to fix this.
Yeah. Sure you are.
Technical problems.
Yeah.
We're having technical issues. Thanks for joining us, John. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm a architect engineer with Microsoft, focusing on Android platform development, and been doing Flutter almost as long as Randall, and you, Simon, not quite as long, but somewhere in that beginning time frame.
You got the Flutter bug. You fell in love with it? Is that the story?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm background is cross-platform development, Xamarin, and all those other things that existed before to try and do that. But Flutter was the one that kind of piqued my interest the most, and jumped into that. It didn't hurt that the person who leads Flutter used to work with me here, so that was another factor that got me interested in seeing what he was up to and following Tim and his adventures over there. But
Cool.
So happy to be here.
Welcome to the stream. We have another guest, Danielle. Danielle, come to the stage. There we go.
Hey there.
There we go.
Yeah,
There's the person
I
who keeps Randall in line.
Yeah, I was the one that was wondering. That was me, actually. Yeah, not Scott.
Sorry, I only saw it quickly, so I couldn't. I got too many things to look at it on screen here at the same time.
And John, I have to say that's my favorite instance of Clippy I've ever seen. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
That's pretty neat.
It's the first one I've seen in about 20 years.
That's what we need. That's what we need. A Chat GPT based Clippy, like wherever the Bing GPT thing is, whatever it is. That's it.
No,
Just
go back
questions.
further. We want Merlin.
We want the little Merlin, like the pop-up bubbles, those like rounded tooltips, all the rage back then.
Yeah,
everything.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
How many other people are paying $20 a month right now?
For what? I pay $20 for a lot of places.
I don't need Chat GPT to write my Dart code. I do need Chat GPT to write my CSS. I am lost when it comes to web pages.
A dirty secret: the spinning animation that I added to my video I did with Flutter Forward, I got off Chat GPT. Is where I started with it.
Wow.
It's not exactly what it gave me, but that's where I started with it. I said write me one, and I did the whole iteration through, changing it a few times, and stuff like that. So, and it gave me something that
It needs updated, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
Bard doesn't know how to do code yet, but it does actually play Wordle, which is really funny.
And I don't know if anybody else is having the same problem, but I signed up for Bard on the waiting list, and I get an email that says you're invited, and then I go to that link and it says you're all set. Or, I'm sorry, the email says you're all set. Try Bard. I click try Bard. It puts me back on the waiting list.
They're having some issues now. Can I speak as an expert? They're having some issues right now getting people rolled out. Some of us made it through all the way through the gauntlet, so that's why I got to play with it already. You're soon. If you're that close, you're soon. Just give it some time.
I say also that you might those kind of things. I remember back in the day was always something to do with cookies. So start log in an incognito window and see if you can actually sign up through the whole process, because it might just work. Right?
Yeah.
True.
It's tied to your Google account though. So you have to be.
I'm just hoping once I finally get Bard working, maybe it'll help me get my seats chosen at Delta.
Maybe
that would be really nice, right? If there was just like things like that became just super simple, right? Instead of all these long forms, the AI does it for you. That'd be really nice.
It could, except for the fact that they won't let it access the web, and I think that might be a good thing.
And since I brought up Bard, I do want to say that I'm liking it. It's doing some cool stuff, but again, its knowledge is more targeted, so it's more vertical into mostly conversational text stuff rather than there's no code. They didn't train it on any code yet, so it doesn't do any coding questions at all. So just don't even worry about that stuff.
Have you guys? Here's one for you. Have you guys heard of the new Adobe AI product?
Oh no, what is it?
Really?
Yeah, so Adobe have I heard that Adobe have launched one. I saw some screenshots of someone using this thing where they drew some handwritten sketches, they highlight it, and then the AI interprets the handwritten stuff and shows them vector suggestions of how it can be formed in all different styles and stuff. And then it will just like put that in its place. So that's kind of another interesting kind of tweak on AI to help you. So if you're having to go around all the edges yourself, you can just have the computer interpret your image for you, and you tweak it after the fact.
So maybe I should finish my introduction, though, right?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Danielle.
Hopefully,
hi, Danielle. Who are you?
Fair enough. Everybody knows me, but I'm Danielle Cox. I'm a Flutter developer. I lead a team of there's 4 of us in my startup company doing our front end development in Flutter. I'm also one of the co-organizers of the Flutteristas. That's probably one of the things I'm most proud of right there. And watch out for it. Hopefully we have some really cool things coming up. And so that is me.
All right, and just to clear up some screen room, I'm going to back out. I'll be watching the chat, so I'm still around, and I might pop in if I have an answer to something. But I'm going to go take myself off for a bit here.
And before we get started, I do have one request. Can we keep the questions related to Flutter and Dart? There are some really far out things out there, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to help you with the NASA API, or doing authorizations on Facebook in C#.
It's about the formulation of the question, right? So general questions around, obviously, about programming stuff is all stuff we would be interested in answering. But asking us how you interface with the Facebook API is like,
it's not, and we get that a lot. We get things, well, not that particular one, and speaking of Facebook, I think I heard something, and since I'm not under NDA with Facebook, I believe they've got an AI out, and they trained it by, Meta has an AI, and they trained it by turning it loose on Facebook.
So that
what could possibly go wrong?
So that's called Llama. What's interesting about that is apparently the model data was leaked on the dark webs or something. So
I was joking.
No. It got leaked from
Is
Meta.
this real?
Yeah. It's called Llama. And this guy, what did I say? He's been doing it. Here we go. Hang on. Let's just start on some AI.
Meta coming out with an AI.
So just to let everyone know, if you have questions, get them in the chat with a Q.
Yes.
And Randall, our magician in the background, is going to filter them to us. But we're just filling some time here to get some questions in the queue so we can start things off. And we'll also end some live coding as well. So just want to get that out there. Right. Let me just show you this. A couple of things here. Hang on. Share screen. How do I do this? What is this computer thing? Who knows anything about computers nowadays? Right. Let's see if I make this bigger. Yeah. So this is the repo. So port Facebook's Llama model to C++. This was something so Llama is the name of their thing. Can I open it up? There you go. Foundation language model, something, computer science, something. I don't know. Anyway, but this guy, this chap has made a pure version of it that will read the model data in C++. And then they've got this working on a bunch of like portable machines as well. So you can actually run this on your Mac, Linux, Windows. And someone else got it running on because Linux runs on Arduino and things like that. So I know there's some interesting things coming up. But yeah, I'll put that link in the chat if anyone's interested in looking at that. It does not ship the data of the model. That's up to you. That's leaked. That's privileged information. So don't ask me. But if you're interested, you can obviously train your own model in the same system. So that's another option. Anyway. Before we jump into the topics here, I've got a couple of things news things to clear up. So first of all, as you know, we're heavily promoting this as we can. This is the call for papers is now open for FlutterCon. That's in July in Berlin, and we've done the first announcements of speakers. So you can also follow FlutterCon EU at FlutterCon EU on Twitter. And you'll get all the announcements as speakers come in. But if you want to speak or you have some interesting topics you want to talk about, perhaps submit them. So fluttercon.dev. And you can also get your tickets to the website as well. They're heavily discounted at the moment. I was
going to say shout out to Greg because I know he's watching.
Greg. In his, I saw a picture of him with his lovely bamboo around him and stuff from his, I think it was a balcony somewhere in Berlin. I was like, that's where I want to be right now. Something back just to kind of cover a couple of quick news things before we jump in again. Where am I? This one. We'll share the window. That's probably easier. So I saw this. This was an interesting topic. Let's zoom in. So this is one of the devs from Dart, adding shared memory multi-threading to Dart Lang. Adding shared memory to multi-lang in Dart. How I see myself, how it's going to end, chaos. But this is always a difficult topic. But it's interesting that he says here he's currently working on the proposal for this. This is upcoming, so that's kind of interesting. That's the first I've heard of that, so that's kind of great. And Also, since I'm here and since it's our channel, Flutter London will be hosting an event next Tuesday. So if you're in the London area next Tuesday, or can be in the London area next Tuesday, make sure you sign up. I'll post that link in the chat, and anyone that wants to sign up, feel free. It's an open event, so RSVP's in person. Details are all in the meetup. Anyway, right, that's enough of my talking. Do we want to talk about AI more? Do we dare talk about AI more?
All I want to say is, Greg, you need me. I'm going to put in a bunch of talks. I can do 2 per day.
I've been playing around with the GitHub Copilot recently, and I've been really pleased with the results, to be honest. Yeah. And we spoke. I know Randall's been using it for quite some time, and has been he's nodding his head in the background here.
Yes,
saying yes. It's actually really interesting, to use that kind of stuff. I have to say, it literally. I'm going to do this thing, and I have a picture of the head of the code, and then I go to type it, and it's suggested it. And
it's already there, yeah.
Thanks, accept, right?
I mean, it works great when it suggests what you've got in mind, but when it keeps suggesting other things, and then you move all the way through, and it still doesn't have the thing you want.
Yeah. I think it's all about the code that you're working with, right?
I thought we'd see on this one.
Yeah, I've been doing conversion of about 40 providers to RiverPod for a client, and it's almost mechanically routine. It's just the same 6 things I'm doing all the time. And one of the things I noticed is that after I did a few of those, because it's prioritizing code I've written elsewhere in the same project, it starts to get the patterns down, and it just boom there. And there's the variable I need, yes, and then that's the variable I need for that too, and it's like boom, boom, boom. And I tell you, $10 a month, absolutely worth it to me. I mean, I make that in 1 day or 1 hour of just using it. It's just so much.
See, that's strange too, because it as a contributor, it didn't charge me.
It was free for a while,
okay,
and then they went to commercial.
Yeah, it's free for you. Free for the first month.
Yeah.
It
was free for about 6 months during the initial rollout. I remember using it for all that.
I might be locked out now. I don't know.
You mean I've tried it recently?
I had to reinstall, so I haven't put it back in yet.
But I will say the downside is that it doesn't seem it only adds like 1 line of code at a time, and sometimes this has to be 4 or 5 lines, and you kind of wish that would already be the ghosted characters.
It just does whole blocks. It's doing whole blocks for me.
So, well, if it's one statement, it does. But if for some reason, if it's just one, it seems to be statement by statement, at least for me.
I think that might be because a lot of the stuff you're doing is statement by statement. Maybe that's why it's like
It's true. It's true. Yeah, for the complicated stuff where it's all one big expression, it seems to be able to mimic that fairly nicely again. Yeah. So, and I tell you, RiverPod, providing RiverPod is such a win. But it's such a pain to get it from one of those. So please stop using provider to start with. Use RiverPod. Then way I have less work to do. I can work on better stuff that way.
One more quick thing on the AI before we get going on questions.
Back to Heidi.
The ultimate and lazy. If you put your cursor in the text field for ChatGPT, hit Windows key H, you can dictate into that, tell it to press enter, then highlight all of that, right click, and if you have a browser extension in Chrome called Read Aloud, you just right click that, click Read Aloud, and then move back to what you were doing while it tells you what the answer was. So you speak to it, highlight it, have it read it to you, done.
I so want a Clippy now that's got like a little tinny voice just to read off all the stuff. Someone's got to make this in Flutter.
There you go. A Clippy that reads whatever you highlight on your web page, and then you just right click and say read it.
I'm literally sure that all those animation frames from the original Clippy are somewhere online that you can grab.
Yeah, I'm sure they're on a network.
Somewhere. Yeah, but you have to get that little loop in the middle to move like a mouth. Give somebody
you know what someone's going
nightmares.
to do? Literally, someone's going to go model it in Blender or something and actually do a full 3D render of it.
Do Rive. We can animate it with Rive. We can make a nice animation. And have
I can do it in Blender 2.79, but I refuse to upgrade again. I'm not going to go through learning yet another UI. I've been relearning Blender UIs since before 2000. I'm done. Anyhow,
Right. So
speaking of learning stuff, there might be some stuff about Flutter in here someplace.
There's a few questions, I think.
Yeah, let's
GoRouter. Is GoRouter able to store or restore the path which is guarded by authentication? I mean to redirect to the path after successful authentication, mostly on web because users can copy and paste URLs.
I mean, GoRouter itself doesn't do any state restoration as far as I know, but there's no reason why you couldn't do it, right? I mean, all you need to do is you can monitor GoRouter. It's just change notifier so that when the route changes, you store it, and then when your app starts up, you pass it as the initial route.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why that wouldn't work.
This is where Randall pops in and says to store it in RiverPod.
Well, and then you the authentication part, you're just checking on at the route level anyway, right? I mean, you're gonna.
It can be done. Just make sure that you don't restore the route after the user logs out.
Right. Yeah.
Even if you did, it would be protected by a redirect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in my app, everything is behind authentication.
Yeah.
And so one of the, it's not like a store where you can look at stuff not logged in, and then to get to your card or something, maybe you have to be logged in, or look at your order history. You have to be logged in there. So mine's a very simple circumstance. So in my case, I've even thought about just going outside of GoRouter and just going ahead and instead of putting that in my widget tree, just put the landing page I need in there, and that way I've got what I need. And then so it knows if it's the guard's higher up, I show the page I want, and then I get rid of that page, and I'm wherever the path was anyway. And I haven't tried that yet, but that's one of the ideas I've been having, just because mine's, like I said, simple because it's always authenticated. But
I think you've got to be careful, right? So this is something that I think web devs have learned, and I think it's app devs have learned this as well, is that URL reveals information like ID numbers and other various bits. So you can still be like share logged in URL, but obviously you got to be careful you're not revealing private information in the URL, right, in the path. I was actually going to briefly just bring up the documentation here for GoRouter, since we're talking about it. Let's see if this works. Make this bigger. Have you guys noticed this as well? This has beat me off a few times. So this is what happens. So it's released a new version last hour, apparently, pending analysis. But the documentation, is no longer linked, the API documentation, because it's not been analyzed yet. Surely the website should link to the old docs, at least for the time being. It's like I have to go version, previous version. Oh no, even the version before that, and then suddenly API reference appears.
Well, then there's the other question. If it's still in review, then why is it showing on?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the other thing, right? That maybe the primary should be the one that's not in review, and then versions list the one currently being reviewed and processed.
Right. Yeah. Listed here in the list, but don't make it the primary landing. Yeah.
Where it said pending analysis. I was going to say, where it said pending analysis, it could actually say, new version under review or something.
Yeah, because you can give it initial location. So basically what we're saying is what I suggest is GoRouter as a change notifier. You can add a listener when your app starts up to your GoRouter instance. And then when it changes, you read the location field, the location property over here, store that in shared preferences. Great package. You can just use that. Or there's a bunch of other store in a file. There's lots of ways. And then when the app starts when it starts next again, and you create the GoRouter instance, you pass the initial location that's been the one that you saved, and therefore you've now got state restoration. This is one way. There is actually state restoration built into Flutter as well. Look for restorable string or restorable state inside the standard API docs, and you'll find that. But that's not persistently restorable. That's temporary restorable. So when your app gets backgrounded and it gets shut down, it will save those variables, and when the app comes back, it will be like where it was before. So it's that kind of thing. It's not when the person purposefully leaves the application, then all state is lost. So. All right, next question, I guess.
Next question. How often do mobile apps get decompiled and stolen, and are there effective ways of preventing it other than generic obfuscation and such? Oh. Who was the sponsor, I believe, at Flutter Vikings?
I don't know
one
who
of the events, one of the sponsors specialized in this.
Oh, yeah.
Simon, talk a while I go looking for it.
Talsec is the company you're talking about.
Yes.
Talsec was a sponsor. Talsec, yeah, they do actually offer protection against this stuff. But the thing is, so first of all, how often do mobile apps get decompiled and stolen? It's not about decompilation, really. It's about re-signing them and adding code. So a lot of the time, what you might find is an APK is downloaded from the play, a popular. So again, a lot of like beginner apps it doesn't really happen to these, right? So don't do this out of fear. Yeah, don't start buying into like lots of stuff, right? But the popular, say Gmail, for example, right? So or Outlook app or something like that, right? So you can download it from your device after downloading it from the Play Store. You can basically add code to that. Plenty of ways of doing that, and then you re-sign it under a new key. Just make a key up, and then you upload the APK file to a third-party website, right? Or you upload to Google Drive and share the APK to someone. Then someone sideloads the APK because it's cracked, or it's like a game. I don't want to pay the no more in-app purchases on this game. So some person downloads, going, oh, no more in-app purchases, brilliant! I can get all the armor in my game or something. And what they've just done is they've installed an APK that has some virus or some dodgy stuff that scrapes all their contacts, that does some horrible things in the background that they don't even know about, right? That's the thing you got. And it's all done in the name of, let's say, Outlook or Gmail or the game, because that's what people think they're installing. And that's the scary thing, right? Now, there's nothing you can really do about that because people are choosing to sideload, right? That's the difference thing. People are choosing to do that. If they go from the Play Store, it shouldn't be a problem because the Play Store does scanning and it checks to see if these things match, and it has signature matching and various other things to protect against this. And
never download your credit card app from a website.
Yeah, I mean that's just asking for trouble, right? Your banking app. I'm going to download my banking app from some random website in China. Are there effective ways to preventing it? Yes. So you can Talsec and all these others offer this protection, or this kind of protection. But the one thing I'd suggest, the explanation I'll tell you about how this kind of thing works. You can do it yourself, or you can just buy into another company doing it. And that is, you can look at the signing key that the signing key used for your. I'm using Android specifically, but the same works for iOS. You look at your signing key, you get the hash, and you put that hash, the identity hash of your key, into your application. And then you just do it as a series of bytes. And when the app runs up, when the app starts up, you can check the hash it was signed with is the hash that your app has in its code. If they're the same, you know it hasn't been altered and hasn't been re-signed. If it's different, something has changed. Therefore, you just shut the app down, right? That is the simple sort of side of protection. And this is I'm talking about repackaging the app that
probably as their own. So somebody taking an app and making
which is what I was talking about.
In other words, stealing it and reselling it.
Yeah,
which is what I was just saying, basically. So someone downloading an APK and then let's say stealing it is we just gave them the file, right? But yeah, normally that's about licensing and other things and very similar things, like you have to have it online to do certain actions. But generally speaking, there's several protection mechanisms you can do. And the nice thing about Flutter apps, so there's tools out there you can literally just go download, you chuck an APK file in, it will show you all the classes, right? Obfuscation protects against it slightly in the terms of it just renames all the classes, renames all the variables, makes it really hard to reverse engineer. It doesn't stop it from being reverse engineered. all reverse engineering is a cat and mouse game, because you're giving someone the code that runs. It has to work on their computer. You can't stop them from getting to how it works because literally they're running it on their computer, whether it be a mobile or whatever. Right? But you can make it more difficult, and that's the challenge. Make it more and more difficult to reverse engineer. And frankly, just the step of using Flutter is actually a big one, because Flutter compiles to machine code. Machine code is a lot more difficult to reverse engineer than simply a Java bytecode or Dex bytecode. So it's a lower, more complicated, lower level, should we say? So you get a lot from that. But again, I'll give another example. There's strings. Literally, I give an example here. Let's say you had let's say you had a game, and it was, let's say you're making a game, and in the game it's purchase successful appears to the user after they've made a purchase, right? Okay, so I know that as a person that I want to attack you, I can see that on the screen, right? So then I download the app, I look at the app, and I search the app for purchase successful, and I go, oh, just above this, it makes a call to the server to see and if it calls successfully, oh, it adds this 100 units to my account balance or whatever it is that I've purchased. Okay, just remove the call to the server, re-sign it, and launch it on my own phone. Now I've got a version of the app that doesn't call to the server, but it's because that string was there that helped me find that place, the hint in the first place. So you can do string encryption or obfuscation. So that's like you encrypt your strings and at runtime decrypt them. And that stops them finding that place, because to find that one spot where it calls the server they have to make the change is the difficult bit. And millions of bytes that you ship, like 8 megabytes. That's 8 million bytes of code in your application or more, and they got to essentially search their way through that to find that one spot they need to change. Anyway, that's my rant on that.
All righty. Next. Is there any way or protocol that lets me send bulk data instantly to the app? Imagine I have a Facebook app that when a user launches, they are supposed to see 50 posts that contain, I just realized what that was, images and videos. Alrighty then.
Your answer is no.
Actually, this sounds almost like you're trying to use not Facebook, Firebase with this.
Firebase is a good option because it caches, yeah.
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking is it almost sounds like a pagination issue where you might be better off using SQL.
No, this is on launch.
This is just an API call.
But,
am I missing something here? Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It's an API call, and they want to be immediate. And
right, but they're giving an example of the first 50. What if they want to get another 50? Now you're into pagination.
Right. Slow down. The question is there any way to let me send bulk data instantly to my app? Right, get the rest.
Yep.
And that is, it's an API call. So you basically create your own API that would surface all the data you need for the first 50 posts, let's say. That would be an API call that you would make when your app starts up, and you would get all that data. And then what you can do, if you want to, is base64 encode or even attach images and video to that content. Hang on. There's actually a thing called multi-part mine, which is a type of response that you can send from the server, which contains multiple items. So you can actually send your JSON and your images as separate binary blobs that are attached to it. But all of this is a lot of headache. I don't know for what purpose you need to do.
It's also not instantly. That's the part I was trying to say. Yeah. For sure, not on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just seems like they're trying to, there's a bunch of stuff that happened while the user wasn't using the app, and they want it to show up immediately when they open the app. And it's
right.
Yeah. No.
They're going to have to download that from a database somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. I want to understand. I think I'm going to ask the questioner to repost about what they mean by instantaneously, because again, it still has to load. You can actually load you can actually do updates in the background, and you can do things like when you receive a push. Let's say it's a messaging app. You receive a push message, you can receive that data and put it into your local database. So when the app starts up, it's there. There's other things that you might want to do. So maybe a bit explanation about what you're trying to achieve and why you want to receive this data instantly. But
right. I think they did this question vague on purpose so that they could entertain themselves by getting 3 different answers and watching us argue.
All right. That's what it's meant
Well,
for.
and the other thing I would say, if it is talking about speed, this is a great time to kind of plug blur hash, where you can send a lot less data and get something you can display that you can replace when you actually get the rest of the data. And so that's a way to
Pagination. No, I'm kidding.
So if people don't know what Danielle was talking about here, I'm going to find it here. Hang on, and share on the screen. Hopefully, if I press the right button, there we go. Pardon me. There's Robert Felker is actually one of the community that actually did the Flutter version. The Flutter underscore blur hash. Blur hash is a technique that's not he didn't invent. It's a standard technique, and basically, what this is you take an image and like this image here on the top left, and you can turn that into a hash. This is what the algorithm does, and it generates this result, which is a very, very blurry form of the first image. And this is tracked with the 4x3 component. Now, if I up this by 8, let's say 8x8, the hash gets longer, but I get more resolution in my blurry image. The general gist about this is that this can be put in your JSON in your response from the server, and you can display this as users scroll. And when they stop scrolling, you can then download the full image. So this way, they get some sort of semblance of the content before it's downloaded by the user, and this does not take up a lot of data for it to transmit across the line. That's what you get at, right, Danielle?
Yep, that's exactly what I was getting at. That's a way to sort of pretend like you're faster when you're not yet.
And basically, that's what this. So Robert's made a thing in here and a little widget that you just pop in when you blur hash, and it draws it on the screen as you expect, basically. There you go. I guess next question.
I was just saying that I was sitting here smiling, thinking that those docs you were reading the other day about Ruby or whatever it was might have been blurred like that, the way you were ranting and raving. All right. Is it possible to update the code of an app without placing it on the app stores again? Which I think is very similar to when Musk announces a new feature, it suddenly gets thrown in the app without going to the store and updating.
No, not exactly.
Huh?
No.
Getting an update to the code without going to the store.
Right.
Okay, so there's a couple of things going on here, but go on. Should we talk about this first point first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And this is where Eric Seidel, his company Shorebird, just announced that they're testing something with that. And I don't know if it's going to work or not. What I do know is that a lot of people jumped all over it, saying there's no way that Apple at least is going to let that happen, and probably Google wouldn't either.
So this is mainly about the fact that as we just said earlier, the stores want to scan the uploads to validate them and to verify that they're not, dodgy or have problems. But you've always been able to have web views that download JavaScript that run new code. So this is called code push. It's not like a new thing. It's been around a long time. Plenty of desktop apps use the same technique. It's like you just downloading updates on the fly. There's not this kind of you must install this to get the changes. And then that kind of leads on to that. I've lost the second bit of the question by someone else. Where did Scott put it? I've lost
the second question, the Twitter one.
No, there was the bit about Musk or something. I don't know. I've lost.
Yeah, that was the second question.
So regarding big apps like that, what they do is they do A/B testing. That is that they already have the code in the app. They just have to turn it on. Thank you. So the fact of the matter is, in most of those use cases are you've already received the update, possibly even a week ago, and it's just not enabled on your app on the screen. So the code's in the app, but no one's flipped the switch to show the icon that lets you use that feature. And that's normally the simplest approach, the way it goes. So they get to test it with 7% of the populace with that flag turned on, or 1% of the user base, and they get to gradually roll that out. And that's the way you do it with a very large application like that. You don't just enable a feature to millions and millions of users or hundreds of millions of users and then have it all come tumbling down like a stack of cards, right?
Well, you can, but
so you can, and that has happened.
Probably not wise.
But yeah, don't do that. It's always good anyway for every application to have what's called feature flags. That is, you turn on and off features based on a setting that you can control remotely. So if something goes terribly wrong with this same API that manages the news feed of your application, you can disable the news feed, and that app just says, under maintenance, not available, whatever you want to put on the screen, and until it's turned back on again. And that gives you control over your product, because a lot of app development, as you said, is like, as the previous questioner said, is like you build it, you upload it to the store, and it's out there. That's it. It's out there for good. It's on the internet. It's there, right? And there's no retracting that. So yeah, that gives you some control over your product, basically.
All right. You know what? The screen is about to get a lot more crowded.
As I said, Danielle, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was going to say some of that. Yeah, I muted because I wanted to go post a comment. When I first go to YouTube, it plays sound, and I've fallen for that too many times. I didn't want that to happen. So sorry about being muted there. Anyway, what I was going to say is, in a previous life, I wrote I was writing some programs for a platform called Clover, which is an Android-based point of sale.
Yep.
And at least back then, you could get your app signed only twice a week. You get, and you couldn't control exactly when it happened, because they would go through it and stuff like that. And so when I would make an update to the code, if it broke something, that was really bad. And so every feature I ever added was behind a customization flag that I could, that when you made your first call to it, it sent back, here are your options, and it could so it could drive itself that way. So very much like what you were saying. In practice, that's how I had to do it, because I couldn't make new releases easily.
If a lot of the people watching want to like try this out themselves, Firebase has a feature called Remote Config, which is designed for this very purpose. I'd say you should go look at that for most apps. That works fine.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
All righty. Looks like we got somebody else here ready to answer some questions. Suave.
Wow.
How you been, buddy?
Good. Just in time to talk about remote config. I don't know if you know that actually remote config gonna be doing live changes in the next release. They're gonna push it somewhere in the next month. So the way remote config works is that you start the app, you get a config, and then you have a time interval when you get updated. You cannot control to get it quicker. You cannot fetch it in any way. You just get it magically. But now it will be real time. So you'll be able to get the changes real time in your app. So that's a kind of what you want to use. You want to have a remote config which is very lean in an old way, or you want to use Firebase database to control your app remotely.
I literally thought of the fun we're going to see where people are using this, and just imagine you're using this app, and you go to use a feature, and the button just disappears. You're like, wait, it was there 2 seconds ago.
It was just
Because Flutter apps are reactive. It just reacts to the update. Yes. Things just disappear and change. You're like, wait, what just happened?
That's the common problem, and we had these problems on our project. We were working together, Simon, right? That we had features which suddenly disappeared from the screen, but it is important to have such a tool at disposal, because sometimes on a large projects you have very interesting situation when you have a multiple consumers of the app saying, like, I'm doing this for France and this one for Belgium and whatever, and they need different features enabled in a different time, and you have a one app. So how you're going to marry this thing? So this is why using remote config to control it. But as I said, read specifically how it behaves before you make assumptions about it, because you may be surprised.
Very cool.
Right. Let's crack on. Next question, I guess.
All righty. Can you explain why to not use a build context across async gaps?
I think somebody did answer it in the chat.
I'll give you my brief here, so we'll just answer it anyway. And that is a build context allows you to access the element tree. However, after some async time has passed, so after some time has passed in your async process, the tree might have changed, which means that you can no longer access it. For example, the widget that you got the build context from may no longer be attached to the tree. And that's why you should be checking if mounted. And that little area that you've got, you put if mounted around it, problem goes away, because it basically means you can't interact with the UI if the widget is no longer mounted, which makes sense in a lot of cases.
And another way to think of this if it's not making sense and you've done Linux, you have to mount a hard disk. So let's say you've got a hard disk mounted and you want to get some information, or let's say you want to write to it, but you've got an API call. So the API call goes out. You don't have the answer yet. The disk becomes unmounted. Now your answer comes back and you've got nowhere to put it because you were using an old context that said the disk was mounted. So, all right. Can you help me to implement scroll physics? No. For page view to snap without deceleration, independent of the user's swipe velocity.
I think there is already
with different numbers, but no luck.
I think there is already one like this.
I've done
package.
I don't remember. It's one of the implementers of scroll physics, I think, does this. I would have to confirm it, but I believe if you look at APIs, there were very funny ones which do a lot of interesting things, and there was one which was like a pagey one. You can fling, but actually you land on the page.
Snap without deceleration. I'm not even sure what. So you know you.
Oh, so you snapping?
Oh wait. No. Wait. So the way I've done this before, I've done some similar things where you have a list of items, right? And you fling it, and you always want it to land exactly on an item. You can do that, and what you do there is you count, you do you run the simulation for with the same gravity and friction stuff, and then basically when it slows down, you find the nearest rounding to the nearest widget that gives you a distance you need to travel. Yeah. And then you start the same thing off, but with the reverse calculation for the velocity to get you to that point. So it's like you're simulating that whenever they flinged, you're always going to end up landing on an item. I've done that before.
I've done this on Android a long time ago.
It seems like they're trying to do the opposite of what most people want to do, right? Most people, you want it to be nice and fluid and kind of gradually.
Yeah, but this one is without a deceleration. That's a different thing.
Right.
There's always going to be deceleration.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to understand. Like, I think you need to maybe rephrase your question and come back to us on this, because I think you always decelerate to stop something, right? And I think maybe the question is the deceleration is too slow on what you're seeing right now. Like it slows right down the snaps. You want to keep velocity. I mean, and just stop.
I mean, it would be.
I'm confused.
It would be essentially too far. I mean, going in an infinity, right? Because what you get as an input is a velocity of your fling.
You always,
right?
Always slow.
So if you don't accelerate, you never stop. So how you decide which one the page is the one you want to go to? I don't understand this. Without deceleration, independent of the user swipe velocity.
I mean, sometimes what can happen is that you're on a page. I remember this on some of the early Android stuff. You're on a page and you try and fling it, right? And it never wants to kind of switch to the next page almost, right? And that's where the numbers are just not right for the velocity. So that, it's not enough effort to move it to the next page before it tries snapping. And these are all tweaking to the numbers that you can do. And you can just, the key here is you can just override scroll physics, page scroll physics, and just implement your own overrides for the what are they called? I have to go look them up. There's a couple of fields for to bring this up on stream actually. Yeah, it's page scroll physics.
By the way, everybody, I just had something come up. I've got to run, so it's been great.
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll see you next week. And you're in great hands. So
thank you for joining us, Danielle, and we'll see you and speak to you soon.
Thanks.
Just back to this. So yeah, sorry, it's a bit probably spring. There you go. So these are the things you override: spring, description, and tolerance. So you can actually extend page scroll physics, call it custom page scroll physics, I don't know, and then just override these two things. And these allow you to control the ballistic simulation of the scroll. And then you've also got the minimum fling distance and velocity, and maximum fling and minimum fling velocity, which also determines how that works. But I know you just change the numbers until it feels appropriate to what you're trying to do, I guess. Anyway, I guess next question, right? Unless anyone's got anything to add to that.
Was just finishing something in chat and moving on. Whoop. How to make face recognition and make it anti-spoofing against a fake face. I would go look at the ML documentation. If we ever start an ML show,
I will,
or get some ML guests.
Yeah. So face recognition works by the distance between features on the face and the detection of those features of the face. The anti-spoof part of that, a lot of the time, is more about the three-dimensional nature of the face. You can actually also calculate three-dimensional distances between various points, which means a flat picture cannot move, right? So you can actually rotate your head and you can take a picture from various angles.
You can make it a flat actually moves nicely.
Anyway, but also the other one is like blinking and other things. But to be honest, yeah, I mean, you're recognizing a face, right? At the end of the day, the face is the camera. There is things that cameras do. The modern cameras on modern phones they do a form of infrared detection that lets them see depth. And you can actually request from Android, I want a depth JPEG. And it presents you, it actually gives you the metadata for the depth of the image. And you can actually use that again to capture an image with depth information, but not all devices support this. So only the most recent Android devices, and I don't remember what iPhone has, when iPhone started putting that in there. They have that. It's basically how face detect works on Apple to unlock their devices. When fingerprint, when did the fingerprint thing get removed and face detect was like the primary way of doing it? I can't remember when it was.
I disabled them both.
Yeah, but the thing is, to use this, actually, you need a plugin which is gonna do it for you.
I mean, the key here is just use the API, right? That's the thing. In fact, there is local_auth. It's a package. It's built by the Flutter team, and it engages the local authentication for biometrics from the user. But all you're doing is proving that there's a real person that is there on the other end that's authorized on that device with that package, right? It doesn't tell you that they're the real person, right? You have to, you're assuming that based on the fact that they've authorized with the system. Anyway, there's plenty of ways, but yeah, go find yourself a package. It's complicated.
This next one is really interesting. Actually, this next one is a nice one. They're not having any luck constraining the width or of cells in a grid view. Cells each contain a stack with multiple overlaid children and creating a web app, so they want to have responsive resizing. Michael, you don't do things halfway, do you? This is wow.
So like constraining the width of cells in a grid view. Cells contain.
My first question is, what is the fit on your stacks?
Well, a grid view. Well, first of all, I'm not quite sure. There's multiple things we can read into this question. So first of all, each cell and stack and the way they're laid in. Does that matter? Is it the actual cell size, the grid view cell size you're trying to work on, or what's the contents of the cell? So give us that. But when it comes to the content on a stack, you can add a fit. And every stack has a fit parameter that you can set to expand, which forces all the children to fill up the size. Now, the problem with grid view, which most people have problems with, is that every child has an aspect ratio. It has a forced aspect ratio, so you can line them up in a grid, and you have to specify that upfront. So if one row's content is taller than the second one, there's no way of dealing with that. They have to be the same aspect ratio, the same size. So that is a limitation of the way grid view works, and it's kind of a known example of why that should be a problem. If you want to work on multiple varying heights like that, you do a list view, which with rows inside it, and the row can have alignment start, and you have like 3 items. You can position them like that. There's no real difference. The grid view is just a nice, helpful way of doing this kind of thing. When you create grid view, you give it a parameter which denotes how you want the children to behave. Oh, here we go. Trying to constrain each cell so it doesn't expand past a given width, so that cells don't get super huge. Okay, so what you're looking for is max extent child, the max extent parameter. Was it child with max extent? I think it is something like that. Hang on.
Okay. And Michael, so the first question here, they're not overflowing and interfering with each other, right? You're just worried about keeping them constrained to a certain size.
So you've got grid view extent, and basically the difference is a lot of people end up doing it with count, which gives you a fixed count, which also means that their size. Is it big enough?
Yeah, it looks all right.
Is that okay? So this is the one that a lot of people use, which creates a grid of fixed number of tiles across the cross aspect based on the child aspect ratio, right? This is what you're seeing here. There's always going to be 4 across, right? Because that's what's been put in here, cross axis of 4 child aspect ratio, meaning that if the size changes, it's always 4 and you can't restrict that. However, the other way of doing this, I don't know why the site is so slow.
Marco's got a suggestion here. I think this is related to this.
Is that, let me just finish this off. This is the cross-axis extent, and this is the maximum number of pixels that you want each cell to take up, and then it subdivides again. So there's no example here on this. That's a shame. But basically, as you can see here, if the grid is vertical and the grid is 500 pixels wide, max cross-axis extent is 150, you'll get a grid with 4 columns. If you then have less size, it will then make less columns, right? That's the other approach. Hopefully that explains it. But normally this is the one that most people actually want, but they choose the wrong one. There you go. Look, web max cross-axis at 184. Yeah. Mobile cross-axis at 3.
And you can to play with it. I mean, right? You could do some breakpoints and set different sizes. Based on
that's the other thing, right? So based on your device type or size, you can then change that width to make more or less size. Like having 3 across the screen makes sense, maybe on mobile, but on a larger screen you may want more. But you change that ratio of number based on that.
Yeah, it's a very nice question. Something we can all chew on. All right, little off topic, but still. That paper dash,
3D dashes.
Actually, this is a question for John Cumming. John, where are you at?
We do have the files, and I'll see what I can do about getting them in the chat next week.
All righty, we got a 2-parter coming up. Any critical, non-cliche advice for getting a job in the current job market? Most hiring happens through referring via companies' internal employees or companies trying to hire back internal employees who were just laid off. There's a really small chance for junior and mid-level developers. You are correct in saying that it's about people knowing each other. So you need to take that to the next logical step. Always be thinking, and then what, and then what, and then what. So if this is the situation, and then you need to make connections. So yes, you need to have a GitHub and impress people and all, but what you're looking for here is how do you make those connections? How do you find out about the jobs? How do the people with the jobs find out about you? And my first thing to point out there is Google developer groups. The GDG program, the GDG program is basically meetups that do get support from Google. There are other meetups as well, and get out there and meet people. I will get the GDG website here in just a moment, but yeah, gdgcommunity.dev.
And you can also find, I'll post this in the chat, the Flutter Meetup Network. For those that don't know, there's lots of meetings. There's 156 groups in 70 countries with 75,000 members globally. And you can go find your nearest one and see when the next event is on.
Yeah, it's 35% what you know and 65% who you know. Because you have to know the people who know where the jobs are, or you don't even know where to go. So yeah, but this is how we meet people all the time. Get involved with your GDGs, and actually, if you get involved in the leadership of the GDGs, you will volunteer. You will go to summits and things like that, and meet lots of other people, and you'll get to know the GDEs, and all of that is happening for the North America region here coming up in May. So I'm not sure what region you're in, Amir, but definitely look up your local GDGs and also the Flutter meetup.
I'd also mention that there's plenty of job agencies out there that will just tech-only job agencies that will put you on their books and will basically, if they find a job for you, they have their I'm sure all of us get like recruiters coming to us saying, "Oh, we've got a job. Would you like to join this job?" Like it happens all the time, right? And we're normally a lot of us, including myself, is like busy doing things, right? But those agencies will hire on developers and they will go find the jobs for you, right? That's their job, and they take a commission. So
go on LinkedIn and put
the way you're
available
advertising
for
to them is by going to the events and just speaking. The moment you speak, the day earlier, you're gonna get essentially LinkedIn call from someone just because you were listed as a speaker somewhere, right? And here you go. But also, if you're like feeling that there is not much that can do the impact in this, and I'm junior and they looking for seniors, there's the old trick. You're looking for something. You stop looking for what you're looking now. You're starting for looking for something that everyone is junior in. Something new. And, this is my story how I became Android developer. There was plenty of iOS developers already. Android was just starting. And so should I start and try to compete with these guys, which have ahead of me like 2 years ahead? Or should I go for something which maybe start, maybe not? I don't know. And here we go. Right? And same was with Flutter. Like,
and someone is mentioning Android, in the US
Android, and suddenly there's this new thing no one heard it about, right? And then you start learning it, not when it's actually up top. That's the main thing. You're learning new stuff when the technology starts on this very beginning, the moment when it becomes the most like growing, that is already too late, and then it becomes stale. At this point, it's like, oh shit, no, that's no way.
I've got to say this right now. Go start learning the AI stuff. We've spoken about this meeting today already. Go start playing around with that, doing your own models, learning all you can about it.
Yeah.
Stick that on
data
your
analyst,
resume.
data science. That's it.
Yeah. Stick it on your resume. Go to these job agencies. Those job agencies go, would you like someone that's experienced in AI? They go, yes, please. And then boom, you've got a job.
And at the same time, use what you've learned with Flutter.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be a front end for this AI.
Yeah.
And Osama is pointing out that in the US, there are a lot fewer Flutter jobs. This is absolutely true, which is another reason that you should be looking actually at some remote events. It's harder to meet people at them, but especially if you're able to speak on a couple of things, that could be very helpful. And that's even a larger reason to go on LinkedIn and make sure that you put available for work, because a lot of these recruiters are from all over the world and they're recruiting for jobs all over the world. The only way I have found anything in the US is because somebody I knew ran into somebody they knew and I got a phone call. But there's very few in the US. You're right. And that's because people in the US are so dug in and don't want to change. It's really sad.
I think there's also that kind of aspect of a lot of work. I mean, we're kind of in the industry in that it can be a remote first industry. A lot, especially since COVID, a lot of teams, a lot of people have moved to remote only. So there's no reason why you can't get a job on a remote team. That's another aspect to this, right? So don't just say, "Oh, what's in my local area," right? Put yourself further afield. Here's the thing: is the dream company you want to work for go put your resume straight into them. Go speak to them and say, I'm willing to learn. I'm a junior developer. I've got all this stuff behind me. Here's my CV. And you never know, you might get a reply, right?
Yeah, but it also is this, he mentioned that he's looking at this from a position of a junior, which means that he's looking for the players that they can learn from seniors how to do stuff.
Mhm.
But the thing is that more and more of this thing you're going to get from community, because communities now are much better than when they were 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, you had to actually be in a good company, which puts an effort to do the good engineering and train their young engineers into senior engineers and so on. Now is you have communities for it. We have a much better tools to communicate with each other in a shape like this.
And bouncing back to one thing real quick, Simon's absolutely right about remote first. And yeah, we do almost all work remotely. Whether that be for agencies, and a lot of us have side projects, it's all remote. But don't blow off going out and meeting people at your local meetups and your Flutter meetups and your GDG group, because they're working remotely. And if they know people remotely who need work, that's exactly what you need to find out about. So just because you find out about a possibility from someone local doesn't mean that possibility is going to be local. In fact, odds are very good it's going to be remote.
I've got a question for the people here, actually. Just something came across just thinking about that last question. Training. When it comes to training, has the model of train, do you think company train changed? In the term that, because a lot of this kind of approach as a company doesn't feel like a company. It's not like you stay with the same company, like days of IBM, and you stay with the same company of like 30 years and then you retire. You know what I mean? Like that way anymore. A lot of the time now, there might be a company that is like, you might work there 20 years and they'll just let you go the next day. There's almost like Gen Z, whatever.
It took my father 10 years to understand the world had changed that way. He was with one company for 40 plus years and he's like, why can't you do that?
Yeah.
And also one other thing about education.
Roadmap for that. But
are you showing how many years you are with a company?
Yeah, I'm the exception right now, probably.
Okay, so here's
24.
9.
I'm kind of curious here. I'm kind of curious here. The question is, do you think that learning? So as an employee, you would expect to get material learning from your employer, right? About the job. So there's a certain that they might put you on training courses. They might get you because you're an asset to the company, right? They'll train you to work in that role.
Yeah.
I feel like now in our industry, there's an expectation that you come aboard already knowing a lot more. You do always learn on the job. That is part of development, right? You can't know everything, right? But I feel like there's almost an expectation that they're not going to teach you something on the job. They expect you to go work it out for yourself or to know already. I'm just wondering if that was kind of what you guys think about.
And also, they're able to get away with this now because people are learning from community. So, and
that's what I mean.
Before, people had nowhere to go, so the company had to teach you. Now we have Chat GPT, and if you got $20, you got Chat GPT 4.
So I've joined my company 10 years ago, and what they did back then is create inside the company something called communities of practice. I'm a lead of such a community for Flutter in my company, which means essentially all Flutter engineers, we meet each other and we learn from the stuff that we learn on different projects that we've done and so far, or we spoke or we wrote some library and so on. But this becomes less and less important over this 10 years because the places like this essentially completely make it unnecessary. So the question is, will company be interested in training you, spending time and money to get you to this point? Because essentially, this is why they did it 10 years ago. The 10 years ago, they couldn't essentially make their engineers better by any other means, so they had to put them on in front and say, this is your training budget. Use it the way you need, right?
It's like in the old days, you might have like manuals for computers and like big books and stuff. You just couldn't go buy these off the shelf, right? You'd actually have to be a large corporation that's been given this from another large corporation, and like these are assets that the company has that train to help train their employees and so on. It's like these practices don't exist anymore with the internet and everything, right? Like,
no, I think that's it. It's just, it's become easier and easier for people to get, the training on their own when they want it, how they want it.
The whole point of Flutter is that it'll be easy to learn.
Yep.
I just
interesting. An interesting aside to this.
Wait.
Oh, darn it, Randall!
Well, you jumped the gun on.
Like,
no,
John,
I jumped.
John, do you remember Visual Studio when it came out and it was a box set, like massive books and CDs?
Yeah.
It was like,
I probably have a copy somewhere.
I had this.
That was 1994, 5.
I don't know. And like,
and then they ended up as essentially your extra level for your monitor stand. So like Director 5, Flash.
Yep.
And you keep them under your monitor.
No. Visual Basic. That's all it's good for. Blop.
Yeah, the one box.
Man.
Visual Basic. Yep. Yeah.
Also, real quick on the jobs and stuff, is AI going to replace developers? I don't think so, because AI is like a junior programmer. Okay, somebody's got to do the code review, and AI code reviews are basically like doing code reviews with Simon. Half the time, everything gets replaced except your imports.
So I'm gonna say this that essentially there is a kind of problem with this old AI chatbots which help. Is that one, you have to be a senior to distinguish the bullshit that ChatGPT is selling you from a real thing.
Yep.
But at the same time, you cannot get the answer for very specific question that senior would have, because it simply was not trained, or there's no message all around it. So you have to make up your own mind. This thing doesn't think what the answer should be. It tries to collect it and put it in a readable way.
Which means, so the answer it may have given you could be O of n to the 10th. But if you don't have the experience to know that, to know that you don't want to do 6 nested for loops.
I saw so if anyone who doesn't know this name, John Carmack, he was the sort of the lead developer behind ID Software, the gaming company. He did Doom, Wolfenstein, Quake, all of these things. He recently tweeted about this. I'll post the tweet in the chat, but this is the tweet. Just found a DM from someone in case people need to hear this. Hey John, I'm really passionate about computer science and engineering. Want to pursue a career in it. Have a bit of concern about the future ability of coding jobs due to AI. ChatGPT-4 and stuff. I understand it's hard to predict how things will be in the next 10 to 15 years, but my main concern is, am I putting all this hard effort for nothing? I'm concerned AI will make my future jobs obsolete before even I get it. Any thoughts on this? And then the answer is, if you build full productive skills and use the best tools for the job, which might make hand coding, but maybe later AI guided, you'll probably be fine. Basically, I'll post the rest of this on the chat so you can read it. But the general gist here is use the tool. Get on board with the tool, use the tool. You're not going to get outpaced by a tool, because a tool is something that you adds to your business, adds to yourself, right? But just straight up, I saw someone else talk about this. This was an animator briefly talk about this. He worked at Disney. He hand drew everything, right? And then they came out with digital screens. You could digitally draw stuff. He's like, no, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. Took him like 10 years before he started doing it. And then he turned around in one day. He was like, this is amazing. This has made my whole life different, right? And it's that kind of thing. Don't be the person that's that, right? That waits 10 years and then figures out they went down the wrong path. Move with the time, especially with software. Keep trying the new things. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, and Bill's saying, why do you even need to see the code if it works? Write tests and generate machine code. I would say there's a difference between code that works and passes a test and code that is elegant and performant and not full of code smells.
Here's the thing I'm going to say. What happens when you use ChatGPT to make the test and make the code? It agrees on both, but they're both wrong. Right? It knows they're both facts, so it thinks they're both right, but they're actually wrong.
And
again,
very old
you know,
question, and one of the sci-fi authors was asked this many years ago, and he answered, "Yeah, a computer will be able to answer any question. The problem is it won't be able to ask any questions." And that's the thing. You are, as a developer, you are not the one who gives answers, asking the question, what is the best way to do this or that?
Clarifying questions.
And clarifying this. And someone will have to essentially sit in front of this thing and saying what they really want from it.
But this is what we found recently in the modern age, is the power of learning how to Google, how to formulate your Google queries that you get the desired result. And that's something as a developer you learn. Like, you learn the right keywords and the right phrasing to use to kind of augment the search results. Because you could search, like, how do I put this thing on the screen? You're not going to get anything. But how do I use a row and a column to achieve a grid layout is going to get you what you want. So it's like that kind of like.
And then Microsoft refactors Bing with the AI and screws everybody over, because now we have to relearn how to phrase the questions.
Right. More questions. That's the answer. More questions.
Yes. And actually, Michael's got a good one about that. Senior devs are needed to decide on architecture and various things like that. All right. Moving on. Where are we? I have no idea. Reading and loading files and images on the fly. Okay. How will Dart perform on the fly? I know there's a lot of offline storage packages, but I would like to do it in a best way. Okay, in other words, without packages. Roberto, one thing about packages, they are what I would call peer-reviewed, picked apart, refactored. There are a number of people looking at them. And so basically, if I wrote a package and Simon thought it was garbage, he would put in improvements, and then maybe John would put in improvements, and Suave would put in more improvements. And next thing you know, the code is better than just about any one person could have written. That's the power of open source. Basically, if you've got 10, 12, 15 people on that code, I understand you would like to try and do it the best way on your own. But what I'm saying is the best way is probably the way that had 10 or 15 people collaborate on it and getting the best experience from all of them.
I will mention, I do agree on that point, Scott. However, there's a lot of power to trying this out for yourself, right? Like the yak shaving, as it is in the software industry.
Yep.
Do it yourself, learn by doing. You understand then how all offline software packages work, and that kind of gives you an appreciation of what package to then choose, right? Because you can look at the code and understand it, right? So, but yeah, I mean, you're just storing files, right? You just read a file.
Robert,
under procedure, you start your pet projects. Instead of using your notification plugins, you write your own, and then you figure out, this is so much shit to do to actually make it work on all the platforms. It's like, I'm gonna go back and just cry to get this actually plugin working. So that's the thing. Essentially, it's
and now you know why there are 100 contributors to the plugin.
Not all PNGs are equal. They're encoded in some strange ways, or whatever. It's
reading and loading. I don't quite understand. Reading and loading images on the fly is how you do it anyway. You just read and load images.
Right.
Is it like essentially it displays before it fully loaded?
I don't know. You're going down the rabbit hole. I don't think it's even asking that. I think it's just how do I load reading and loading files on just reading and loading files. How does Dart perform doing that, right? And the question on that is it will block the main thread if you do it on the main thread for a small period of time. But that's where you use a wait where possible to block an IO. Or there's actually examples of using isolates for doing JSON parsing, for example, on a background isolate. A lot more stuff to deal with in terms of handling isolates, but you can always go do that.
Any more info on the scenario here?
I think offline storage as well is I think my package is still on pub state _ persistence, but basically it's just uses a file and stores your map as a JSON file. That's it. That literally is it. It's just abstraction around that. And the thing is, it's like best way. There's no like strictly best way. It's about what you're doing. I mean, there's several, as we said, there's several packages out there, like for databases and all sorts of things that you can do storage in. Perhaps maybe more about the scenario. We could answer that a bit clearly.
Yeah.
I know what, like there's something I was looking at recently, which was progressive JPEGs. And I don't know if anyone remembers progressive JPEGs, but from the world of 56K, you would download, as you download the image data, it would get decoded and displayed on the screen. So you get like a blurry image, and then it would resolve to a less blurry image, less blurry image, less blurry image, until you get the pixel perfect image. And that was a progressive JPEG. And it doesn't quite work that way in the modern times, but there are times when you kind of want that, and that's where that kind of blur hash sort of principles come in play, where you have a representation of the image before it's downloaded. And this is kind of displaying things on the fly is what I think of. But
yeah.
All right, next question, I guess. All right. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I was in the middle of typing something else. So, do files downloaded from Firebase get cached in web apps? The point is how to not re-download files that might be updating weekly at most. So, in other words, closing the entire session, closing the computer, and restart.
So, the answer to that is no, they don't get cached.
The world's biggest cookie.
You can request, so Firebase Storage has a method to request the metadata for a object from the store that gives you the e tag. Essentially, I don't know if it's called e tag. It's like basically the hash of the file, the identity of the file. There's also cached content MD5 as a header. That's a lot of that can also be added on there, which is again the same thing. And the idea is that you can go query the metadata. If that does not match the one you have stored, then you can go download it, right? That way you don't have to go downloading the content if it's not changed. You can also, in a query on the Firebase Storage API, you can request this particular version. If you've got a versioned object store, and that can also support the same thing. So if the version's updated of the object in the object store, you'll then download it. Similar approach, basically. But for the most part, you can actually use local storage. It's part of the browser, part of the package to store this data. And then that way you can compare it so you don't re-download it. Either the file, the contents, or the hash alone. But that's up to you. But yeah, in short, yes.
All right. Yeah, we're getting up to about 90 minutes here. I'm going to have to go after this next one. So I'm just going to skip one real quick and get on to one I can answer here. I have theme extensions on a build context for getting theme data, but I'm not sure if it's a recommended practice. If not, why so? Not only is it recommended, I would look very sideways at any app that didn't have it. It's especially helpful in white labeling. If you're going to release the same app to two different clients with non-exclusive licenses, because then you can just keep changing the color themes and the strings in the theme extension. And remember, you can put anything in that theme extension. You can just abuse it horribly.
Well, I will explain. So the themes are just inherited widgets. They are exactly the same as like Provider or Riverpod or any of these things. When they go up the tree to find something, the difference between theme extensions, is they're attached to the theme, so they behave the same way that the theme system works, and they inherently change along the same in way as the theme system. So if you're doing something that relates to the UI and the look and feel of the UI, it should be in your themes. But don't just start chucking everything in your theme extension, because that won't be the result that you want. You want to put that in a proper state that you can restore and can control separately outside of the theming system built into Flutter.
Right. And what I'm talking about when I say you can throw just about anything in there is you can throw things in there that will be a little bit different, say from client to client or from page to page, whether it's not just colors and things like that. You can change the fonts and the icons and the defaults and the sizes and just about anything you can find normally. You can make your own version. All right. With that, I have a furry one who needs my attention. So you all have a good one, and I will catch you later.
See you later.
Simon, you're going to have to get your finger ready to click on these questions.
Right. See ya. All right. Next question. Randall's going to join us. Congratulations.
Might as well. Hey, now we have a nice equilateral layout again. So
There we go.
The OCD not. Right. Let's see. I've used GML Kit and TF Lite for face detection and recognition, but couldn't make it anti-spoof. The app size also became larger because of the ML models.
Yeah.
So I mean, it all depends on what you're trying to do.
But
They
is it
also
like
don't
ML
suggest-
models should be actually downloaded by the app? Wasn't like a service that you actually download models when you boot the app first, so you would never put it together.
I don't know actually, but there's no reason why you couldn't like put those ML models on a server and download them.
Yeah, because the thing is, then you can update the models without updating the app, right? That's another thing. Yeah. Well, I think there was essentially a mechanism for downloading dynamically the model before the use. I've just heard this somewhere in Android space.
Yeah, no, I think there is. There might be I feel like there is a flag that I have seen it. There's also APIs that you can use, and it's all done server side. But it's about the anti-spoof piece, and they actually do say in the Google ML docs this is not meant for identity recognition. There's or something. There's the difference between face detection and face recognition, or something like that. Like detection is just here it is. Recognition is this is definitely this thing, and there's that kind of like. I can't remember if that's the right terminology, but there's a terminology that's specifically one versus the other. And that's up to you. And again, a lot of apps do this thing. Well, now blink, and then it detects when you blink. And then okay, you're the real person. You're staying in front of me. It's not a photo, right? But, have I got a video of someone blinking?
now do an interpretive dance. Great. Yeah.
Right.
Please do this.
Make the game T-pose.
Wait, what is it? It's like that. There we go.
Yeah. Do a night fever, right?
Yeah, right.
Imagine people trying to log to their phones, making different shapes. And
yeah, that's right.
Hang on. Swav, do you remember?
Password says semaphore. Password says semaphore.
What's the F?
Lower F, yeah.
Yeah.
You got angry bottom half too.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Moving on.
Oh, sad. Yeah, we still got questions, and you want to do some coding, I think. So let's not dilly-dally too much.
I'm making pseudonymous social media app. Okay. What backend should I choose for my application? I don't want to use Firebase.
I've been interacting with him saying It depends. It really depends on your requirements, and we don't know your requirements in one chat line. There's no way.
I mean, what does he mean by pseudo-anonymous? I mean, it's pseudo-anonymous, right? Is that so simple?
So it's like you are essentially eager banana there, and
everybody's
there
avatar.
as an eager banana, and there's
Second Life.
Fruitful.
Everyone's that could be any backend. Just pick one.
Yeah.
Right. You could log in the app. You invent a username. You invent a they put their username and password in. And that's it. That's it. They've joined. It's not linked to a real person in any way. It's pseudo-anonymous. Then done.
The question is why I don't want to use Firebase. It's not like I'm forcing you. It's essentially, very, very easy to use in many aspects. That's why my curiosity here. Why not use?
Firebase is probably the best out there. It's competitively priced, so you're not going to find extravagantly cheaper prices because it does cost money to move electrons around in certain ways. It's a given.
My first inclination may not be available in his country.
There might be.
But I will.
Plenty of options.
I mention quickly Superbase, which is
Superbase,
right? And that is this one open source. I think this is open source on GitHub, right?
Yeah.
But, this has authentication and database and storage in real time. But there's a bunch of these. Like the thing
about something like Superbase, though, is that again, you're going to end up having to figure out now how to scale it if you're hosting it yourself, or you're going to be paying Superbase Corp to scale it for you. I mean, there are things way beyond just what the free parts are. Nothing is free. It's going to cost to host Supabase somewhere. It's going to cost to scale. It's going to cost, and it's by that time you add all those things back in, you might have equaled or better the cost of Firebase.
So whatever you choose, make sure that you abstract your interface when communicating, and you decide to migrate from there to somewhere else. You just implement it. You put a feature switch, right? And you be A and B testing that you nicely move from one base to another, and you migrate it to another one, and you don't care about Firebase anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is one of the things that I've seen, or like it is actually one of the things that happened when Firebase first came out. It's like, oh, Firebase does all this kind of stuff. Okay, I'm going to make a Firebase list, and then that's a package that people use. And it's now something all my lists in my app or all my screens now use Firebase directly, right? Which is just not the way to do it. You any external dependency, any external API, you have a very limited interface to your application, and therefore you can be in control of how your application behaves to those things. Yeah.
That's the use of the repository, where you could have an internal API that talks to the rest of your business logic and views that is different in some ways, decoupled from, therefore, the external API of whatever particular backend you're using.
Yep. It also means when you want to do upgrades and do things, it's a lot easier. And you can that's the old API. I'm going to redirect that request to the new API. And you can kind of do those kind of like fun things, right? All right.
Yeah. I think we answered that to death. Let's move on.
What is the best approach to building a different app on top of an existing one? What's the best way to do that? I should be able to pull code updates to app 1 within app 2. How to use app 1 as a dependency in app 2?
I think if you're owning the source for both of those, what you're really talking about is just having some common packages,
right?
Locally developed packages that you can pull into app 1, and then you pull in those plus more into app 2.
You could just take all that Dart code from app 1, put in a package called app 1 library, right? And then just literally import import that into your project and use those Dart files whilst having completely fresh custom code base. And then for in app 2, you can have a new app widget and just pull pages in or bits in, and however you want to do it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get more fine grained, you could start looking at something like Melos or some of those other micro type packages. But I get my guess reading this is App 1's going to continue to be updated, and they want those updates. It's almost like having a trial versus a paid version, right? You've got one version that does X, and then you've got another version that does all of X plus some more stuff. And when you update the first one, you want those changes to pull through automatically.
You can use any app, so any Flutter app can also be used as a package.
Yep.
So you could just make app 2 depend on app 1 directly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start using
just make sure that app 1 doesn't change anymore, right? Because then you're screwing your app 2, which is built on it.
Well, you have to.
This is why you want to sometimes have this abstract package there, which is shared by both, right?
That is the other way of doing this, right? Is to then make make two new app packages, app 1, app 2, and take all the current code and everything else and put into a third package called common or whatever, and have both app 1 and app 2 use common. And that way, any changes that happen in common are going to affect app 1 and app 2, but there's a more direct reference there. And you can have them all open, like with what John said, like Melos, and then you can have one project open that has all 3 packages. So if one thing changes, the other thing, you're notified of the breakage in the other place and so on. You can manage it better.
Yeah.
And just a meta note, I have typed this twice now into the chat room. I'll say it out loud so it comes in clearly. No more questions today. Come back in 166 hours, please. We're done taking questions. We're trying to get through the few more that we have so that Simon can do live coding, which we're all very excited.
We're going to do some live coding after that, hopefully.
Does it involve 3D in games?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It involves some nice.
What?
It's all AI.
Let's just move on.
Everyone leaves. All right. Next question. A couple of questions left in the queue.
Yeah.
Was this?
I mean, that scroll.
Oh, this is from the scroll thing. I mean, without deceleration, linear scrolling, same as IG Reels and YouTube Shorts. The user swipe velocity has a fixed velocity and will snap without any ballistic.
So it doesn't matter how fast they swipe, you want it to be the same. So.
No, it's just the curve of slowdown. You just want a linear curve when you're slowed down, and you can just change that in those settings we just gave you. So the spring description, you can configure that to be a linear. The same goes for your tolerance. You can configure that. Just all you've got is a linear slowdown. So there's no it doesn't slow down and stop. It just slows down gradually and always ends nicely. You could probably also just change the curve of your animation. That's the other thing, right? So you can actually do some nice tricks with the UI where you move your finger, use a gesture detector, and then that inputs into an animation controller directly. So you're not actually using any page view or any. You don't page. Let me just be clear about this that everyone watching. Like page view and all these other components are material components. They're based around the material design patterns, right? Like the whole sort of pagination is the material design pagination. But you can just do whatever pagination you want. You don't have to use those widgets, right? But yeah, the way you do it yourself is you'd have a gesture detector, and then you use an animation controller. And you can literally animate your views into place, and that's the kind of thing you can do as well. And you just take full control over it. It doesn't matter what the velocity and what the physics system of scrolling does. You're doing it all yourself, and it's not too difficult. We can have a play with that in a minute if you want. Anyway, go on. Let's do the next question here. Right. Facing issue with in the grid view expand and collapse feature, like user click on view more and then items will expand and see less if collapsed. Oh, this is reference to the. Was this reference to the other question we had about?
No,
grid
I
view?
think this was a different question. So,
I mean,
grid view expand and collapse feature. User click on more.
I think this feels like the one I was saying, that they have a fixed size, so you can't expand it. Or you can't expand one item without the others changing size as well, right? And the answer is don't use a grid view. Use a list view with a row inside.
Well, or is it even easier than that? Are they using the same value for all their expandables to control viewing? So when they view one, when they click one to expand, they're all expanding versus just the one. That I'm trying.
This is the problem that you have, right? So when it comes, we can actually experiment. We can experiment with grid view in a minute. Just explain some of these cases, but because it wants to fill the content, because the tight constraints on each of the children, you're going to need to add in a line if you want to be each one to be smaller and then to be able to get bigger independently of the rest.
I probably need a little bit more because I'm reading it slightly differently. That they have some sort of control widget, probably an expandable, like an expansion. What is it called? Expansion tile, expansion something or other, right? And they're clicking on it and it's expanding all of them, but they want it to collapse all of them except for the one that they want to see. That's how I'm reading it. This will be expanded if see less than collapse the items. Or maybe they do want to expand them all at once and hide them all at once. Maybe that's the problem. More info.
Right. Let's see. I think we're on our last question now. After this. Is this a follow-up?
Oh.
I'm also facing the issue in Grand View. That's the same thing, isn't it?
It's the same one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the last one then. So, hang on. I want it with the animation. Was the reply I just saw in the chat.
And I want it with the animation.
Then wrap it in a so you can use a size transition or a slide or animated size. There's also slide transition. There's a bunch of these that will, when you flip your toggle, it will expand, and we can actually have a go with that in a second. Actually, it's kind of
if you want it with animation, just hire Pixar. I mean, really, it's simple.
And the Flutter library is showing it is under development. Not sure what.
I don't know what.
I think we're getting lost somehow.
All right. No, I think that's all. Let's stick around. We're going to do some live coding. I'm just going to set this up, but talk amongst yourselves for 1 second while I get things ready.
Yeah, I just want to say, Android terminal, please stop asking to ask more questions. I cut you off. You weren't here earlier. You needed to be here earlier. Come back in 166 hours. Ask your question. Be first in line.
We'll do it all
That's how
again
that
in a
works.
week.
Exactly. We're here every week.
And if you don't want to wait, there's plenty of other places where
Yeah.
we hang out answering questions for people.
John keeps stalking me on Discord.
No,
so
you're stalking me.
No, I was there first.
We'll say we will take questions on what we're going to be live coding, of course. Like that. That's all part.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We let those through.
But we're not answering just random questions anymore.
No.
There's only so much of that you can answer.
So Richard says that they need a place to put code and UI examples to help with their questions. There's plenty of places. You could put a link to a paste bin or.
They can't put links. That's the problem.
Oh,
I understand.
Well, they could type it in. They could type it in, and we could copy it and paste it.
No, they can't. No, anything that looks like URL, you have to do it with like Stonehenge, the word dot and com. I've done that before.
You can't even just put x.com
Nope.
/ it.
No, the .com immediately is what triggers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's filtered. It's
nice.
filtered.
All right. Well, that don't work then.
Good for us because it's less things I have to worry about when I'm watching the moderation. But yeah, exactly. Anyway,
sadly, it's the world we live in now. We have to put these things in place.
Yeah. But go to there's no restrictions on Discord. God, there's no restrictions on Discord. So you can go there and paste an entire wall of text. You can paste a picture of text. Please stop doing that.
No, if you do that, one of us is going to
don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh, they do that all the time.
You do that, and one of us is going to jump in and yell at you to do it differently. Do it the right way.
Or the camera phone of the glossy monitor. Oh my God! Thank God you're wearing clothes most of the time.
Yeah.
I have not seen any naked people that way yet, but I'm sure there will be a day.
I swear I've heard about things online like people posting eBay postings of like crime objects, and you can see some naked person in like the reflection or something. Like,
I can't unsee that. No.
Right.
Did we give you enough time, Simon, to get set up? We're trying to. We're filling in here. We're riffing until you're ready.
All right. Let's see.
We're gonna start looking for Clippy frames soon.
Oh, that could be the next thing to do, right? Like get some Clippy frames in here. So I'm just hopefully that font's like bigger. How's that for everyone to see? Is that
looks pretty good?
Enough? Yeah. All right. So so let's run this up as a Windows based quick example, and then we can move on to bigger and better things, as they say. Right. So what do we want to? So I had some ideas about it's always something that bugged me, and I was playing around with this just yesterday, and this is this kind of notion of, you know, I'm sure most people in this call would probably use index stack. It's basically a stack widget. I'm going to put this over here. So we'll say, let's just do material app. Banner and a widget. Just a bit of boilerplate to get us going here to the fun stuff. So, comma. Thank you. All right. So now we have a make widget here. We can do. I'll show everyone what I'm talking about. So let's say we had material. And we'll have a column on insect column. Columns default. There's another thing that bugs me at the moment. Column should always use stretch as its default. Like, it's just every single time people miss this, and then they go, well, why is it not doing the behavior it should do? It's because you're missing stretch. Just anyway.
Yeah, it is an odd default, but it would be a breaking change to change it now.
Yeah.
I know, and that's
affect everybody's code. Yeah.
No.
But it's like but to me that's like great, but then like identify it. They should probably just like get rid of, just change the name completely, so it break code, not just flip and change, right? So as a break and change, like a migration piece, it would be called stretch all or some other sort. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, let's move on. Right. So
we can only fight so many battles in one day there, Simon. Just
I know.
Put that lower on the list. That's lower on the list. Why don't we get rid of Future Builder? That would be a better thing. Anyway.
So if we wanted this, a quick brief, like sort of standard sort of that'll do. Right, save that. That's going to be that.
The placeholder. Make the symbol of the X.
And we'll give this a height. On that, let's go 88. 88 miles an hour. Why is that so small? Let's do that.
Save the clock tower.
Save the clock tower.
Right.
There we go. Right. And then in this row, this is kind of like maybe a common sort of like mobile phone kind of like layout, let's say, where you might have like 3 buttons or 3 tabs or something like that, right, across the bottom. So everyone's seeing this, right? All right. So if we had, now what we can do is we replace these placeholders with actual little example bits of content. So first of all, a good example of what you might do on a home screen or some other screen inside your app is that you might have like your index of what screen you're on, and based on that index, you'll show different content. So here we could say text.
What I love about doing these shows is I learn something every single week, and it just finally occurred to me the power of using placeholder while you're just sketching something out. It's obvious, but I've been like, I would use sized boxes and stuff and then they'd be too big or too small. And like, duh, just make an auto grow thing. Make something that wants to take all the space it can. There we go. We're done. Oh.
So
my whole coding's gonna be changed. I can't charge as much per hour anymore. That's crazy.
Life has changed now forever.
Yeah, reteach Copilot all over.
Yeah. Copilot didn't even suggest.
Here's a question: If Copilot learns from your coding, and you're a beginner, does it learn only beginner suggestions?
Ooh, I bet.
Oh,
it learns from your code, but it's also trained on all the code that's sitting out.
Shush, you're spoiling it.
Right.
Okay, so we're on page 0, obviously at the moment. So if we were to take out this placeholder and bring down here, and we'll call this page of our application, and said page is going to have an index of the term. Just to get this out.
I sure wish there was an auto const removal, like there is an auto const insert.
Yes, that would be handy.
I mean, it's yelling at me saying that can't be const. Well, then fix it.
Yeah.
Remove the const. Yeah. You know what it needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Don't make me go there.
Keep the first one, get rid of the rest.
Yeah.
So you might do something like this: go to page, index. We do a set state on that set index, and now we might have a. Just very briefly, quickly do this, just so we've kind of going. We'll just have like a status bottom nav button.
bottom nav button.
This can be an inkwell. Sure.
Copilot's helping you out. Or was that just intelligent?
I've lost track of which is which now, to be honest.
Sometimes both of them fight to figure out what to put in, which is a little scary. Or it's like I'll see the perfect Copilot thing, and I'm about to hit tab, and then my IDE pops the other one in.
Yep.
And it's like, no, I want that Copilot one. That was it. That was it. Come back. But I think I can press Option Quote to prefer the Copilot one or something. I think there's a key sequence in there somewhere. I keep forgetting it, so I have this page for key shortcuts open all the time now. It's like, what shortcut was this? I can't be the only person on the planet that's that way. I mean, I'm sure.
There's a simple button, and we'll just use that 3 times over.
Cool.
On tap, we're going to refer to our singular go-to page. It has the same signature, and this is index 0. 1 and 2. I'm trying to keep this quick and simple. Your mileage may vary, all that jazz. Right. There's our 3 buttons in our little bottom nav, and we have our singular page of that index, right? So if I hot restart this, and we press button 0, button 1, button 2, our number changes. Wow, it's amazing, right? It's gonna irk me if I don't do this now. Text.
There's so much technology there. This is amazing.
This is like top of BMW. Like
use all the widgets. Use every widget. Use them all. Pick a fractional font size. Make it work. 22.3. Yeah, that's my font size.
So the obvious thing. So the interesting thing here is what we're doing is rebuilding the entire home screen, and then the page is being completely replaced. Now, you definitely want to key this like this, and this means that it's not just the type that's changing; it rebuilds the entire widget. This is probably what you want with content pages at least. However, if this has a lot of content on it, you don't want to like switch between page 0 and page 2 and for it to re-download and re-request all that content from the server. You want it to cache that page.
Simon, maybe explain what this key actually will do in here when you put in a page.
So, okay, that's a good point. Okay. So at the moment when we switch, well, in fact, I can show you this without the key. So without the key, down here, on the page, if we make it stateful, just so we get the callbacks, we're going to get a did update widget, right? Because it's the actual widget that's being updated. So if we print that off with X and this, let's say a whole widget, and so what I'm going to do now. Yeah, that's off. Debug. So that's our first transition, which is nothing. Let's clear that. So we go to page 1. What's actually happened here? That same widget has it's not been replaced completely. Its state remains. So this state function remained from page 0, right? This is the state object remained from page 0 and got an update call to page 1 because it's the same type. It has the same key. That is no key at all. So now if I go to page 2, it's now going from 1 to 2, and I can switch, which is great. You may want this behavior. However, for content, you definitely don't want it to kind of reuse what's already there. Things probably get a bit messy. You want to be careful. So I'd say in this particular use case, we definitely want a key. So if in fact I leave that on there, I'll leave that did update widget in there, and this time pop a key in. Log. Restart. And we have our first transition. I click on page 1, oh look, page 2. We're not getting did update widget get called because a completely new widget is being created for that for each page each time. Which again, you kind of want that, but you also don't want to recreate when you don't need to. So especially as this page, a good example here is where is it? Come back. There you are. Especially if this page, let's say in a init state, does some work, we can actually show that here. Go on. Did someone have a question? Yeah. Exactly. What if you have heavy content on screen? This is exactly what I want to show you. This is exactly it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting at. So, let's say we do something like this. Future string, whatever. Future string.
Future string.
Data.
Data is my name. Data is not.
Oh, that's interesting. That works. Thank you.
Copilot helping?
Thank you. Copilot's helping me. Great. And then down here in the page, what we can do is have wrap this. There's still never a rapid future builder. I always do rapid stream builder and just rename it. Like, how is that not like a top thing?
Why? How do you even get wrap with Stream Builder? I've never seen that before.
You in VS Code?
Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
The
plugin isn't providing that as an
option. Dude, I deal with. Let me just show you. I'm going to show everyone a bug right now in here. Watch it. Can we do this? Yeah. So if I try and remove Future Builder, that's a use case that does work. It's going to be the time. Anyway, basically generics. If you have generics on widgets, it breaks the removal feature. So you need to delete the generic, and then you'll see remove pop up on the menu.
But that works. That works in VS Code.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So each to their own. But I still haven't reported it. I've just lived with it. I should have reported it by now. But I'm sure the plugin author is now watching the show, going, "Curse you, pesky kids." Right. Anyway, so what we're doing here is, yeah.
You think that's bad? I had a code fix that put an await in the middle of a quoted string in front of a variable. It's like, no, you can't go in there. It's not where the await goes. Not in my text string.
So we'll make this late. So now what's going to happen is the app starts up. It does this future. It returns this string 2 seconds after the page is loaded. For those first 2 seconds, it's going to show loading because that's the initial data. So it passes through. That's what we can use required data because it's always going to have data, right? So if we restart, it's loading. 2 seconds later, we get that. So let's make that font size.
No, now, Robert, it's not that important. It's just for clarity.
So now if I switch pages, that's restarting the future each time I switch. I can't go to page 2. It says loading from page 2, go back to page 0. It's now loading again. Why is it loading again? I don't want this to take place. There's several things for this. Now, right now, there's the one that most people use, which doesn't fix this problem. But I want to show it to you, everyone. So that is, we do wrap with index stack. Index stack. And this is quite nice. It does an interesting job, right? And that is, if I do this. You can do this. This becomes, and we don't quite, we're not changing these, so I'm gonna, I'll leave it there. Speaking of this use case, we don't necessarily need a value key, but so now what's going to happen is it's going to load the first page. I go to page 1. Oh, look, it's already loaded page 1. Oh, look, it's already loaded page 2. That's because all 3 widgets were built and all 3 loaded their futures at the same time. And now when I switch back, it's the widget's already there. So what index stack does is it's custom render object actually underneath. but all it does is it renders the one. It just renders a hit test on the one that you selected, right? On the index of this array of children that you selected. But here's the problem that I have with this: if these three screens load heavy data, I don't want the user to have to load all 3 screens of data to achieve this same thing. Yeah. So what is the solution? This is the question. What is the solution between switching pages and having the ability to go back and still have the content? So that's kind of what I want. Yes, that is one thing. So
that solves everything, really. Just add RiverPod.
So this is actually quite an interesting use case in that respect, right? So one point of what Randall's making a comment on there is actually you lift the state up, right? So you take the state out of the widgets. Right now, all our state is internal to the widget tree, right? And by lifting it up outside the tree, it means when that new page gets loaded in our first example, it can just use the data it already has. And that can be one way of managing this. But you lose your UI state. You might lose the scroll positions. You lose other things, right? You have to recreate those widgets and those elements. Maybe having them around is a good thing, right? This all depends on how you want to build your application, right? So how do we solve this is the real question here. So so here's someone's actually said in the chat here, page view with Keep Alive. So page view with Keep Alive has a very similar problem to this. First of all, I don't want any scrolling. Second of all, Keep Alive will keep them around, but it also will generate things that are not on screen. There's some things you can do, but again, it all depends on the control that you want over what you're doing. So again, it's like it's like solving a problem with, a round, what's it called, a round peg in a square hole or something, right? It'll work, but it's not the nice way of doing it, shall we say? But it's this kind of complex layout issue, which we're going to build your own custom widgets, and this is what I kind of wanted to cover, right, a little bit more. And now I'm going to give it another example of this. Is what happens when I want to do custom transitions between those screens, right? What happens when I want to do not a page view transition of like a sliding thing? I want to do my own custom transition between those screens. How do we achieve that in this situation? This is another question that comes up. So let's cover that. Does anyone have any questions? Or we just carry on?
We're caught. I think we're pretty up.
Cool. Let me just grab a drink here because
Flutter 3.7.8 released.
Whoa, more hot fixes. Yeah.
Just came out unstable.
So what? A new release? Darn it.
It's quite interesting. We're seeing a lot of these recently, and from what my understanding is, a lot of it's because of their bug fixing in Pella. I want to get those changes out there to people. I may be wrong on what the specific instances are for this latest one. I haven't seen it, but
29 minutes. I'm 29 minutes behind. No. Puro upgrade. Puro upgrade stable.
So okay, let's take it one step at a time. How do we animate between these screens and still have the index stack approach? Right? That's the first thing. So let's make a widget. Let's make a widget just underneath here. And we'll make a new stateful widget, and we'll call it animated index stack, because I'm so cool with my naming. And what we want here is a current index. Oh, look, Robert Burridge says, yeah, a bunch of fixes for Impella. Reported 2 different ones, and they got fixed within 10 days, and now they're in Impella. Woohoo! Indeed. We all want that Impella to succeed.
Yes.
All right, and so here's our index and children. Let's require those. And we'll drop that in as a replacement for our stack. Okay, so we have the same parameters, but all we're going to show is a container. That's not very helpful.
Yeah.
So
not even a placeholder.
Oh my god, not even a placeholder.
Now that I learned about them, now I'm going to use them everywhere.
It's just a green box or something, at least.
It's jumping ahead.
A size box.
It's jumping ahead. It's done exactly what I was trying to do. This is fun. So, oh my god!
Don't fight it. Let Copilot write code for you.
Yeah, don't fight it. Just accept it. Accept the inevitable.
Accept the code.
It will bring us all to an equal level. To each gives their own response or whatever.
If it doesn't work, we fix it later.
Here's a good point. So this is actually what Copilot suggests, which is actually where I was going with this. So that's nice. However, I'm going to say there's a mistake here, and there's no idea. Again, so this is great. There's a mistake here, and it's not a mistake in the code. It's how the code is structured. So let me show you this. So this is kind of interesting. So I'm going to hot restart this, and now we get our loading, and I can go between, and it fades between the pages. All well and good. That's all lovely. We need something to differentiate these pages a bit more. Let's add a. Let me just add a color index here because we're not really seeing transitions. So color. That's the bottom left button. That's the wrong thing. Don't do that.
Be sure to use the HSV color space because it looks better.
And now I'm not going to do that on purpose. So we can do material. It's actually what's it? Material colors.
HSV gradients are awesome.
Colors dot primaries. That's the one. That's the one I was thinking of. And widget index. There you go. And then we can say with actually that's a good question. So I'm going to need this really light color. So I need to do a HSV. Was it HSL color? HSV color?
Oh, it's one of the two. Oh yeah, they're both there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't one
they're different?
I mean, one's not. Yeah.
One's the lightness and one's the value, which is sort of the lightness.
Yes.
What is this trying to recommend?
It's just harder. The last values.
Yeah, but this actually sounds nice. So this is going to choose. So if anyone doesn't know, this is going to choose.
Be sure to put it in a comment. I want a light gray and a yellow, and then it'll put from the color from the comment. It'll figure out the color.
This is there's 360 degrees in the hue color space. This divides it by 3, the maximum, and then does a widget.
Oh, look
so
at that!
Get 1 and 3.
That's awesome.
We get in a alpha of 1, so it's fully visual, fully
unless
opaque.
widget index is 0,
and a lightness of 70%. So let's see what we get.
Index red, +1, index
we
plus
have a green, and we have a purple. There you go.
Oh, how did it work? Because index should be 0, right? At some point.
Yeah, which would give you red.
Blow up would be a nan, wouldn't it?
Well, but no, because it would be.
Oh no, you can't. No, you can't get that.
Oh, the times is outside parens.
Yeah.
I get it. All those stupid Facebook queries where it says show this expression and calculate it correctly, and everybody gets it wrong. This is so funny. It's a waste of time.
So
anyway,
back to here. So we've got 2 different color pages, right? Should we also let's briefly just add, because there's people going to be complaining this. I can hear them in my head already. What we're going to quickly do is say
I'd get that fixed.
Pink. Most people don't know how to use it properly. We're going to say if this is selected, then we're going to say widgets.red. Otherwise, it's null. It's probably terrible color scheme, but I don't care.
They're pretty. They're different. They're different. Differentiated.
Where did widgets come from? Oh my god! All right, selected. Come on, guys. You have to back me up here. Don't just let me fail like that on live TV, right? So we're going to hand over.
God
selected.
forbid.
Then up here, when we rebuild, we take out index. Really simple. Just say selected. If the index is equal to 0, then it's this one. Otherwise, it's this one. Otherwise, it's this one. Now, we're doing this repeated 3 times. You do this in a for loop. You can have a model that holds your pages. Yeah.
And for everybody watching at home, I'm sure Simon's going to create a gist of this and paste the URL at the end of the show.
I will definitely do that, yes. So the code will go up on the literally during the show, at the very end, I will post this so everyone gets it. So anyway, so here's our lovely 3 pages with horrible colors. So it animates between those pages.
Simon's not a designer. He's a coder.
So what we're actually seeing here is actually an interesting problem that the green one, when we go left, is on top of page 0, and on the way back, it's underneath. It's very subtle, So let's elongate the, and you're not going to really see this with bold colors. And this is because the one that we're fading in, so this one at the top here is going to be in line with the rest of these widgets. We always need it to be the one that's on top of the other widgets. So we pop this down here. So that,
Wow.
and then this becomes not equal. That is the correct approach. And this always becomes the widget index that's selected. Right? Is anyone following that? Why is it up?
Else.
No, the point here is in this for loop, it goes around each one. If it's not the one that's selected, it will do the other screen. So in this case, it does 1 and 2 first, and then the one that's selected, page 0, will be put on top always. So the one that's fading in, going to 100%, will always fade in on top. The reason why this works, but we're switching these around and so on, it's not a problem, is because it's the same type, right? So it's switching these are switching their places, and their states have just moved around. But the widget children are actually being rebuilt in this case, right? Because they've got different children to the widgets. We need these animated opacities to actually to migrate correctly. So they're not going to be doing that right now. So all we need to do there is this is called reparenting, and it's what the framework kind of does for you. So we make an array of global keys. In this case, I'm just going to hard code this in. Oh, thanks. It's going to do it for me. That's always nice. And we give each one a debug label. Oh, look, it's done it for me again. Page I. So now we have a key for each page. We now use that key on each of these animated widgets. And it'll be the one based on the index, which means it travels with the selected index. So what this will do is it will move the widgets around and reparent them and redepth them where appropriate in their slots, rather than actually passing new parameters to the existing widgets. Let's restart that. Loading. Okay, all these other pages loaded, the animations read. But now we can go between pages, and the one that we're going to is always going to be in front of the one we're going from. Doesn't matter what order that the index is in, it's always going to be fading into the one that we're now showing. And it looks a bit horrible with that, like duration. Sorry. Hopefully it comes from the stream okay. We could bring it down to something more reasonable, I guess. All right. That's hot restarted, and that's slightly better. But anyway, so that's kind of nice. But again, do we want, if we were to change the ordering of these widgets in some fashion or anything else, this would also change. There's actually something else we're missing here as well, and that is the ones that are off screen are just invisible. They still can handle touch events. They can still have animations that are running and that are tending to repaint. There's all this kind of stuff that's still happening here in the background that we want to have to deal with, right? So we probably want to use an off stage, and there's a couple of other widgets that we can use. So let's just throw these in here. So let's make a new private index stack item. And what do we actually need for this? Do we need we can key it on the outside, and we can pass in the child. So we just need because we need to know if it's visible. So I see ball visible, and we also need to know actual widget for the child. And then we're going to take this logic up here as the widget. Now, the key we're going to move outside, because that's not the problem. Duration we're going to hard code. Opacity is going to be based on if it's visible or not. So if it's visible, 1, otherwise 0. Child is the child. We'll pass it in. This almost looks pointless, and it would be right now, but we'll fix it in a second. So we're replacing this with visible, of course. visible, true. And then down here in where there's animated opacity is, you can actually wrap this with a off stage. And it's the reverse condition, so it's off stage when it's not visible. We also want to ignore the pointer. Probably, I don't think the ordering matters, but it irks me a little bit here.
That seems like offstage should automatically ignore the pointer, though, right?
I'm just trying to remember. I don't. So offstage just stops the rendering. It still takes up the size in the UI. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look that one up. The other one that we're missing is this one. This is a very little known widget called ticker mode. And you want to guess what that does? Anyone? Does anyone
do not animate?
Yeah. So basically, ticker mode stops the tickers. So child tickers actually look this one up and register themselves with it, so that when it's disabled, the animations stop. So what we got ignoring the interaction of the pointer, we got stopping the animations, and we're not painting.
So why are you ignoring pointer on all of them? Wouldn't you only want to ignore the pointer on the ones that aren't visible?
That's why this ignoring is set to the visible.
Got it. Yeah.
Oh no, that's the inverse condition as well, right? So we're only ignoring the one that isn't visible, right? Cool. I feel like I'm missing something. Let me have a think. We've got backgrounds. I don't know. Let's just try it, run it, and see if we broke something.
Yeah.
Right. So it loaded, and I go page 1, and that loads. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Now we have a fade to white. The fade to white, I think I know, is what's happening here.
Ooh.
So this is kind of interesting. So this is happening because it's off stage, so it doesn't render. We don't want it to render, but only after the animation has finished. Right?
You're seeing the background, the default background white value because there's nothing there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. So how do we solve this now?
More code.
What are people saying in the chat? Stop the animation.
No, there's nothing significant. We're just joking with you.
So let's see. So we definitely want to make it stateful so we can manage our own state. So basically right now we need to monitor the animation to know whether we should change this visible flag or not. I think if any one of the pages has slightly visible content, then it should be enabled. So its animation should be going. So as soon as we go from being completely invisible to being like 1% visible, we should be having those animations going. We should be not ignoring the input and so on. So this visible flag is actually really based on the animation state, right? All right.
I wonder how much easier this would be with Flutter Animate, because Flutter Animate does a lot of this cool staging stuff.
I don't know if it would do this for us.
It would do some of it, I'm sure. The swapping of one widget to another.
On the end of the animation.
Sorry, say again.
Would there be any handler on the end of the animation?
So animation opacity does have an on-end callback, but it has a problem. It only tells us when it finishes.
Yeah.
I mean, we really need to go, okay, have we started it? And it honestly makes things more complicated right now. What we can do is just take over the animation, right? So we just say, well, we'll create animation controller. Right?
You just need to use a listenable to watch the current state of the animation, and when it becomes non-zero, then you could do some other action.
But we need to. But the thing here is, we don't have interaction because this is an implicitly animated widget. We don't actually have access to the controllers. We can't do that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, that's nice. Thank you very much. And then we get to listen to that animation, and we get to set a flag that tells us if we should be visible. I know interacting. I mean, we've got this flag, but this is the incoming. So we probably want to say, let's have a flag up here. No, but I don't know if I want to call it visible. Interaction. Let's put it interaction.
On stage.
Interaction. On stage. Or maybe this should be off stage.
Off stage, yeah.
So off stage false, so it's on stage by default. It doesn't matter. We'll set that in a second. In fact, let's set that here. So it's off stage if it's not visible. There you go. Okay. And pop that as the default value. And when our listener changes, we're going to set off stage. Interesting. That's not what I want. So we want to check if, so first of all, we want to find a local off stage to be if the controller's value is equal to 0, that's off stage. And if, there we go, if it's not, if it changes at some point, then we set the state. So we only rebuild, we don't rebuild on every time the animation goes. It's only when our condition changes here, right? There is a status listener as well, but this works. That's the talk for another time. Right. Value, our initial value for our controller. If we're visible, then it's 100%. We start at the end, we end at 0. Cool. I think that kind of sets us up. Now we need to be a good citizen, and when our widget finishes, we need to dispose of our controller. And I think that kind of does the setup. So now off stage, so we have an animation control off stage, and then down here we can change this to a fade transition. Takes a and opacity, which is an animation of double, which is what a controller is. So that will control our fading, and then we're ignoring if we're off stage, and we're off stage if we're off stage. And now invert this condition. So if we're not off stage, then we're. I feel like this probably should be. Okay. See what happened. Did we fix it? So page 1, page 2.
Nope.
What did that break? Oh, no. Oh, yeah. No, that's actually correct behavior. So the visible flag is changing, yet we don't do anything with it. We don't control animation. So did update widget. So actually, we start the animation off correctly, right? So it's just when we get updated value, pull up, there you go. If it's visible, then we go forward, otherwise reverse. So restart again. Yay.
No more white.
It feels like it's getting lighter between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because adding the colors both?
Oh, I'm wondering if it's not visible. If it's not visible, should it go in reverse, or should it always fade in on top? I'm actually just thinking that maybe this is wrong. Maybe this should just be.
Isn't this because you adding the colors which are exclusive, and the moment you're adding essentially you adding values, right? So the 100%.
No, this is the problem here is though it's 50% of the first one's color, 50% of the second one's color together. You don't actually get a complete overlap because it's pre-multiplied, so you kind of see what's behind, and it gets lighter because the background is lighter, right? This just setting this controller to 0. I think, does that cancel the current one? Yes, it does. So actually, we'll set it to 1. I just want to see what behavior this has, because forward from 0, so it always goes from 0. So let's see. Page 1. It definitely doesn't go lighter, but it's not doing what I thought it would do.
Initially, it gets darker on the beginning.
Let's increase our animation time, and maybe it makes it more visible here. think what's happening here is they're all becoming visible because we don't check. I know what this is. If widget visible does not equal old visible, then we change it. I think what's happening here is the initial start is telling it to animate. Okay, that's good. It didn't do it now. That's good. Now, if I go to page 1, there we go. It's going from red to green directly.
Ooh.
And if I go back to page 0, it goes from green to red directly.
Yeah. Yep.
Ooh.
And if I go to page 2, it goes and messes up.
Blue.
Why do we see green though?
That's weird.
Anyway, 0.
And if you go to 2,
Page.
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's because you want to see all of them. It knows you're going to want to see all of them eventually.
Well, because you're setting them all to on stage to start with, right? And then
I'm wondering if it's this. The one that's currently being set, I'm saying it to 100% visible before the other one, before it's reordered. I think the animations are actually painting a frame.
Would it be
feels like-
easier if you render them with an offset so you see which one you're actually displaying, which one is on top?
Yeah, you could do that, right? See, that's with 0 because there's nothing behind. And we always want the widget behind to be there 100%. I'm wondering if, hang on a minute. Is it this? If it's visible, it's 100%. It actually always starts off with 100%. Hang on. And let's see what happens here. Green, red, no, blue. See, blue to red works. Blue to green. No, see, I went blue before the green came in.
you're getting like the
You're one delayed somehow.
See, that's actually seeing blue. I think blue's there. Like, I think, is this a case that, I don't know. This is interesting.
Yeah, if you put the labels in different places so that they weren't on top of each other. I like that with the offset up and down.
Yeah, what we could do, let's do that here and just see what we got going on. So we have this is it, debugging live.
It would have been coding live, but no, now it's, well, I guess that is part of coding always.
Let's pass over our index.
Who was it? One of the, like, Dijkstra used to call programming bugging. First, obviously debugging is getting rid of it. Then, it's bugging. He used the word bugging as the word for programming.
All right, so we have an index, and now what we could do is wrap this. Let me wrap. Okay. I don't have any.
You don't have wrap enabled.
Oh no! Okay, now it wants to work. Who knows?
It's in the middle of
right. Wrap with transform, translate.
We did have someone who actually likes the flash effect, but that's okay. We'll just keep going forward. We'll try to get it the way we wanted it, the way Simon had envisioned in his head before trying to fix it.
That's 50-50, multiplied by.
I will say Flutter Animate can go from one widget to another with all the right stuff to swap like this as one of its primitives.
Yeah, there is a problem there actually that I've seen a lot of these animation frameworks have. I don't know about that one, so hands up. But they decide to put 2 of the widget in. Like when you animate to a new widget, it keeps the old widget behind to like show it, right? Like if you have global keys, you get those problems where it's like, oh, you've just used the same widget twice on the screen because during the animation, it wants to display 2 of them, right? They don't always work the way you expect.
Right.
Const with a wait. Sure, but I thought it's because it's not double. There we go. So that'd be 50-50 times 0 is 0. 50-50 times 1, 50-50. 50-50 times 2 would be 100. So that this offsets them all by 50, right?
You think?
I thought. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, look at that! Look at
That's
that!
what the voices in his head said. Anyway.
Now we can tell what's coming in and out. Yeah, that looking like it's working. How
I
is it
think
working?
I might know what's going on here. Hang on, look. So we go to that one. That one's in front.
Yeah.
One.
Ooh, how come the other one disappeared just then? It's not.
Okay.
It's not getting rid of the one back.
Yeah, but it should. It always starts from 0. So I said from 0, so it always fades in front. But so that one moves in front and fades in.
We have more data and still don't know. Sometimes experiments.
I think this might be a case that the last one to be shown to the user should be the one that's underneath the current one, right?
The previous one, you mean? As opposed to
So, yeah. So this is so we're essentially reordering our keys.
Oh.
Do you see what I mean? So this index we're always treating as the index of 0, 1, 2. So 2 is always going to be on top of page 0.
Wait.
Right?
So you're kind of back. So this was the question I had before. You're saying if the current item we're looking at isn't the index one, yeah, you were missing your else. That's what I was trying to ask you before, because you were drawing the one twice. Then you're always without the else.
And this is well, no, it's not twice because they're not equals, right? But this is now
but if it wasn't equals, you were drawing the first index stack, but then you were going to draw it again because you didn't have
but this. Right, but this is the problem. So if I go from 0, let's say I'm on 0 here, I have these two widgets in front of page 0.
Yeah.
Right, because 0 has been added before 1 and 2 on this condition above.
Right. Okay.
So this always needs to be brought out of the else condition, so that it's always rendered in front of the rest.
No, but okay. So, but here's what I'm asking. So, reading your code, let's just start from 0 to 1, right? So, if let's say the index is right now it's 0, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and we're going to go to what, page 2?
Sure.
Okay, so you're going to get page 0 isn't the current index that we're trying to get to, so you're going to draw the first one, right? Index, stack, item, keys, blah blah blah.
Well, this is what I'm trying. This is what I'm saying.
We're going to do the second part of that and draw it again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's drawing. So in this case, in that example we just gave, we're on page 0. We go to page 2. It's always going to render these two, then this one on top. What we actually want to show is the red one below, then the blue one on top.
Right.
So this is what I'm saying. That the ordering of these children should be the ordering of.
So if it's not, so wouldn't you just skip it if it's not the one that you're trying to go from or to?
Right, but do we know? I guess that's the other thing, right? But the problem here with skipping it is we always need these to be attached to hierarchy to keep their state. Right. That's the thing, right? So that's where offstage comes in, right? I think to me that the idea is you either reordered the children in here so that the one you're previously on is the one that's underneath the one that's fading in, right? Therefore, that stops the animation problem, or can we?
I mean, you'd almost want to take in the current and the one you're trying to go to, and then basically put all the rest behind, and then put the one that you're currently on in front of it, and the one you're going to then after, right?
Yeah. That essentially achieves the same result, right? So we just say last index.
Yeah.
And we can just set that at invalid index maybe at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, no, we could say last index is always 1 before the current index, right? And then a minute out.
Yeah.
Well,
but it won't.
It can be -1. We'll just treat that as invalid.
Okay.
We always
would
want
have-
them underneath, right?
I would have.
Well, but it's
I
not
would have
always
been.
be-
Yeah.
Right, because if you go to 2 and you came from 0, you don't want it to go to 1.
To be honest, it doesn't make a difference in the initial one, so we could just actually do -1.
Right. Yeah, for the initial, yeah.
I think this might have some problems, but let's try this. Let's see. Let's see. So our last index is -1, and then when we get updated with a new index, we're saying that we want to do this if condition. Yeah, there we go. Last index is old index. If it changes, perfect. And then we're saying that. How are we going to render this? Because we need to render all of them.
So
I was saying about reordering, like
you almost have to you probably have to walk it twice, right? And add, how would you do that? Because you don't want to put all of the ones that you don't care about, which would be right now. It's easy, right? There's 3 pages, so you're going from one to another.
here you go, look.
One that you missed.
do this. Here you go. This is the way to do it. If I does not equal last index, right?
No, yeah.
Right. So we're going to get all the ones that are not the ones that we want, and then the one that's directly underneath. If last index does not equal -1, there you go.
Why is this not even -1? But are they going to be in the right order necessarily? What if you come from?
This one's going to be all the ones before. This is going to be the last page that we're on, and the one that you're going to. So this guarantees the ordering. This
And not okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So they're not equals, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's try that. So let's see. Red to green to red. So green stayed on there. Perfect. To blue. Blue. Yeah, green's gone. Right. Green's behind. So just for everyone that's like, green's
just
still
behind
red,
the red. Yeah.
behind the red. And to green. Perfect. To red. So you get that white because we're offsetting them. But this is actually the appropriate.
Wow.
It feels. Hang on.
And this should work if you added 10 pages at the bottom.
Yeah.
So let's
why wouldn't you manipulate a set effectively?
that is another way of doing that, but you only need the last one.
Because what you're trying here is like,
Yeah, but you're still going to have to reorder a set. Like there's a lot more to that than just
but you take a set, you remove the specific index, you put it on top, and
push it
you
on
remove
top.
the specific index and put it on top.
That's why I was saying the least recently used type deal. That's what's going to go through first of all. But last index also works. We don't have to keep one integer. We don't have to iterate or manage a list or. So okay, here we go. Blue to red.
Yeah, you re-implemented a set. That's what you did with a list.
Well, I'm not really. We don't have a
No,
list.
we're just storing one piece of data, right? Just
Yeah.
one value, an integer, instead of having to do a bunch of extra work
Right.
to manipulate the set.
Yeah.
So I've got a bug that I introduced here, and that is if you switch whilst it's still doing an animation, you kind of get like a jarring change because I reset the somewhere. I've skipped right past it. Here we just reset this to 0. We actually just want to stop. There it is.
Just ignore the pointer anytime that's in transition.
So this is kind of one of those interesting things. I think it's,
That wants to hack it the easiest way possible.
Just block
You
it.
started, that's it. You done. You have to wait
put
until animation finishes. No animation cancellation.
Yeah.
Get out the hammer.
Yeah, there's a solution. Come on. It works. It's just like debouncing a button that goes and does something. Make it turn gray. It's my upcoming thing for my Dart Flutter channel.
see. So we start off. Go to this one. Why am I not getting that? What have I done? Green. Blue.
Clippy should show up and say, "Make up your mind." Should be an
It
animation.
is very difficult to read it from these colors because they are very bright.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was thinking as well, right?
Yeah, I I was thinking essentially if you write on a color its hex value
Maybe we should get rid of the
in
placeholder.
hex, then you can see if you're changing the correct correct colors, because you've selected colors which are essentially
also primary colors, which doesn't help.
So if you do essentially red, green, and blue and make them as a standard colors, you have full FF, then you can see the values going correctly and not affecting others.
I think we reached good enough point.
Yeah. I think we're already 45 minutes over.
Oh yeah, but we're having so much fun.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, so there you go. So now we can do like this nice transition. There's no reason why you can't also. I mean, we're just doing fade transition here on the controller. You can add a slide transition. You can do your own animated builder. There's all sorts you could do to make this yours, right? But
Flutter animate. Gotta keep throwing that in there.
Here's just an example of being able to switch between pages. I know we had some fun there, but truthfully, that isn't that complicated, right? We've got some page and whatever it needs to do, right? And a button that sets the index, and what we just had fun with was with the animation side, right? But
so as a summary, we've learned what the keys are for. We've learned about cool widgets which stop you from having clicks, stop you from being animated. What else? There was a third one which we were stopping.
Placeholder.
I mean, with global keys are being used. Placeholder, that was in there at the beginning.
Off stage.
Yeah. Off stage, yes.
A bunch of how the widget tree works here with those index stacked items.
Yeah.
How to do custom animations. Having fun with those.
Sounds good.
Yeah, lots of stuff.
Sounds good. Ship it.
It's good to go. Production. let's test it in production.
Yes. Right.
All right, let's stop my screen share.
And make the gist, put it in the link.
You guys, chat between us.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So and I again want to bring up Flutter Animate, and I did paste it in the chat room. The things that Flutter Animate lets you do are basically build implicit animation on pretty much any widget you want, and you can either have it sort of like text.animate.fade in over 5 seconds, and that's all you have to write, and it just does everything correctly. So basically turns that text widget into an implicitly animated widget, which is really fun. You can also flip it inside out and do a custom controller around the outside of a widget. So take an animated value and do whatever you want to with it. Again, very minimal syntax. This is done by the G. Skinner company, which is it Greg Skinner? Is that his name?
Grant.
Thank you. Yeah, Grant Skinner. Beautiful stuff. It's actually getting better like every day. He's adding more and more cool stuff to it. So even there was a demo in Flutter Forward, which is sort of my embedding in it, and he's been updating it since then. So it's even done some really, really cool stuff. And one of the things it has is swap. So you can basically say, take this current widget and swap it with this widget over time and do the right things to move it off stage and correctly move the one widget to the other. So that's one of the primitive steps that's built in. So that's why I was bringing that up while Simon was trying to construct that from scratch. So yeah.
Okay, and the link is in the chat.
Cool. Thank you for that, Simon. Thank you
for anyone that doesn't visually see it, but there you go. That's literally the code. We just type.
Just type that in off the screen. EFBA.
Dude, people don't even know. People don't know what it's like when we were kids. You would get a book. You'd have to type in line by line. And then you realize you missed the colon and the whole thing crashed.
Yeah. On the end of it, it was this big, massive data thing, which was hash value putting in.
Do you know what? I have to tell you. One of the things I remember that time. I don't know about you guys. I remember that time when I realized those data was machine code. There was like a lot of apps that would put, machine code subroutines in data and loaded subroutine out of that. They would load it into memory and then they'd run it. But the day I saw that, I was like, wow,
Yeah, there we go.
yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. That's a Commodore
Commodore
64.
C4.
I remember typing in
Was it
many of the
Vic 20?
programs from the big book of 100 basic games. I would go through and type in this code in basic. Oh, back in the day.
And then you managed to get. I remember building Breakout, my own Breakout clone of Spectrum, and I was like so happy bouncing that ball and getting the color blocks. It was amazing.
Yep.
Oh, wait, where's my cane? Where's my cane?
Right
here.
All right. Before we start going off on another tangent,
You kids. That's
you
right.
don't even know what it was like.
We had to type uppercase with a different keyboard.
You had case? I didn't have case.
Yeah.
We didn't have numbers. We had to spell out the words.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Next time let's play with perforator and just
You guys had both caricature and line
punch card.
feed.
Punch card.
You can just write some, assembly
yeah.
and write an app in assembly next time.
I mean,
You had an
Yeah, make a
assembler?
widget which prints essentially data in a punch card.
Oh, there we go.
We had to key it in on the front panel, ones and zeros.
Randall might have a punch card printer that we can use.
I don't have anything like that. I never used punch cards in my entire history. I came in right after that. So, yeah.
I've just still seen them somewhere. Just
Yeah.
discarded
Paper tape
somewhere.
now. I've got a roll of paper tape somewhere with a program that I wrote on it. So,
I remember getting one of those ZX Spectrum thermal printers. It was like silver paper, and like, this is basically a steam printer, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
it was like my own printer.
I know. Yeah. Okay. I think this
All right, come on.
enough for
Enough.
old fogies.
That's enough.
Time to start, champ.
167 hours from now, we will do this
Next
all
week.
again with some entirely different way to screw up while writing code. No problem. Thanks, everybody, for being on the show.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye, guys.